In a dark room, a blonde girl asks about something hidden. However, the boy remains silent, his sword pointing at her. She says she asked him a question. He, exhausted and weak, looks at her and thinks, this girl, the direct disciple of the Supreme Sword who shares the same lineage, could she really be powerful enough to defeat hundreds of demonic humans with a single strike? Seola, the divine sword, the one who ended the celestial demon, the same one that caused the great war of the orthodox demons. The girl lifts him up, stating that she knows he knows the location, and asks where the rest of the demonic humans went. She also asks if he feels even a hint of remorse. The young man thinks he knows the location, but cannot speak, as his vocal cords have been destroyed. Moreover, his seal prevents him from saying anything. The girl, with tears flowing down her face, says this is his last chance. Everyone wants his end, but if he helps, she will do everything she can to save him. She, with a trembling voice crying, begs him to say something. The boy believes all of this is driven by the hatred she feels for the demonic human she couldn't capture. Or perhaps it's because of Jang Seon-yeon, the meteor blade, her fiancé, who was captured by the demonic humans. With a slight smile, the boy considers it ridiculous that the woman, more powerful than anyone else in that world, is distressed because of one man. The girl throws him to the ground. Trembling with rage, she says that if she had known he was such an evil person, she would have ended him the first time she saw him. Biting her lips, she says she regrets that. The boy thinks that the first time they met, as she thinks it was, must have been a little different from how he remembers it. Thus, he wonders when things went wrong. I am a traitor who has ended countless lives from behind and allied with the demonic humans. This must just be my karma, finally catching up with me. Seola, leaving, notices something and looks back. Seeing Gu Yangchun on the floor, she asks what he is doing. He begins to write on the ground when suddenly, an immense pain strikes his heart, causing him to vomit. He continues writing, thinking that the curse placed on him is that if he breaks the conditions, his heart will explode, ending his life. As he continues writing, she starts feeling more pain and begins to vomit again. He thinks this is the demonic art of the celestial demon. Do not betray the demon cult. The girl begins calling him. While he thinks he can barely hear what she is saying, he thinks, if he said he was framed and none of this was his will, would she believe him? He believes not, because he could give countless excuses. But it's too late. There's no more reason for it, as he's already tired. When he finishes writing, he feels a tremendous pain in his heart and falls to the ground, thinking about why he lived his life this way. Gu Yangchun remembers when he was talking to his sister, and she, with a smile on her face, tells him to be happy. Seola picks the boy up and places him in her lap, asking if he can hear her. He thinks that all of his regrets, whether big or small, have made him who he is today. Yangchun begins to remember his past and his regrets when the green-haired girl meets her end. Meanwhile, Seola continues shouting and calling for him. In that moment, he recalls another regret, when the white-haired girl met her end in his arms. Returning to the present, in his final moments, Gu Yangchun, from the Gu clan of Shangxi, was born into a renowned clan of the Orthodox faction and lived his life as an Orthodox martial artist before betraying and allying with the demons. The demonic cult lost the great war of the Orthodox demons, and Gu Yangchun was treated as a prisoner of war before meeting his end. At one point, a girl offers him potatoes. Confused, he wonders what is happening. He thinks he could swear that he had violated the rule imposed by the celestial demon, thus exploding his heart in the process, causing his life to end in Seola's arms. He thinks that is what happened, but his heart is beating normally, as if nothing had happened. Gu Yangchun thinks that, in addition, judging by the small hands, this is a younger version of him, and wonders if it is some kind of dream, since this is how they first met. Seeing her holding the potato, he remembers what he had said to her back then, when he threw the potato to the ground, crushing it, and asking how a worm like her dared to approach him in such a way, ordering her to know her place. He, feeling regret, wonders how he could have said such a thing. With a slight smile, he believes that, as he is reliving this in his dream, it seems he still has many regrets. The girl, embarrassed, says that he doesn't like potatoes then. He picks up a potato and thanks her. He then bites into the potato and burns his tongue. Yangchun thinks, if this is a dream, why does it hurt? Seola starts laughing and says his face turned all red. Soon after, her guard appears, calling him young master, and asking why he disappeared suddenly and came here. Yangchun thinks that this is his personal guard and wonders what his name was again. He remembers it was Muyon. The guard says he was worried and thought something had happened. Seeing that the young master has a burnt tongue while holding the potato, he asks the girl how she dares to do this. Yangchun tells him to relax and just hand over the thing. The guard is confused, while the boy explains that it's the honey cookie, since he knows it's with him. Muyon says it's the last one. Quickly, the young master asks if she wants it. The girl asks if he's giving it to her, and he replies that yes. Youngchun says that the potato was very tasty, but it's the only thing he has to give in return. Wee Seol-ah, with water in her mouth, says that it's her first time receiving something so delicious and with such a good smell. At that moment, someone appears, calling her name. She turns around and says it's her grandpa. The old man asks if she is okay and says he told her not to wander too far from him. The girl replies that she's fine and even managed to get the potatoes. The old man calls her a brat and says the potatoes aren't the problem. He asks if she hasn't gotten hurt. Wee Seol-ah responds that she is fine. The young master is surprised to see the old man and thinks he recognizes him. The girl says she gave a potato to the boy, pointing her finger at him. The old man quickly pulls her away. Seol asks where he is taking her. The old man bows to Youngchun, apologizing for his granddaughter's mistake, as she, being unfamiliar with the world, offended the young master from a prestigious family. The boy says it's okay, in fact he was thanking her, as he had gotten hungry and, fortunately, she gave him a potato which he really appreciated. He says that the only thing he can offer in return is this honey cookie. If it's all right, he would like them to accept it. The old man remains silent, while the girl says she accepts, since it's something sweet and shiny. The old man picks her up in his arms and runs off, saying that they can't accept something so precious and that they won't bother him any longer, disappearing from the young master's sight. Youngchun tells the old man to wait, and he responds that if the young master is angry, he asks that the young master take it out on him. The boy hands the cookie to the girl, saying that this is his response. The old man, seeing this, thinks that his granddaughter, Wee Seol-ah, has found him. The girl and her grandfather say their goodbyes. When the protagonist realizes they've left, he sighs deeply and thinks that the old man was one of the three supremes. They were praised as the strongest in the Murim, spreading fear and terror among the unorthodox members. The supreme sword, Wee Hyogun. Youngchun wonders what the supreme sword is doing in a place like that, and thinks that even if it's just a dream, he almost died. At this point, the girl thanks him from a distance, while he smiles and lets out a slight sigh. Muyan tells the protagonist that it's time to return. He responds that it is, and thinks that he no longer has any regrets. Then, it's time for him to wake up now. Sometime later, Muyan says they have arrived. He, confused, thinks about why this is still happening. If it were a dream, he should have already woken up. If it's not a dream, then it must be something related to the celestial demon's curse. Suddenly, a voice says that it's fascinating, and he realizes it's someone he knows. A young woman says she didn't imagine he would come, instead of running away from the place where the clan leader is coming. Youngchun thinks it's Gu Yongseo, from the Flaming Sword, his second oldest sister, and the person who hated him more than anyone. So, the reason everyone is gathered there is because the clan leader is coming. Yongseo asks what he is plotting this time, and tells the young master that if he's planning to do something foolish, he should not do it and get out. The protagonist replies that he's only here because he's forced to. His sister says this comes from someone who knew this and still never showed his face once. The boy replies that it was his fault, so he will apologize to the clan leader later. Yongseo, irritated, shouts his name, exuding her fiery aura. She begins to walk toward him, saying that she doesn't know what he's planning this time, but he better stop now, or she will put an end to him for good. If he keeps acting like a brat, he asks her to calm down and says that the clan leader is coming. Mounted on a horse, the clan leader asks what all the commotion is about. Everyone around greets the leader and falls silent. He starts staring at his son Youngchun, who silently meets his gaze. The clan leader turns and calls the minister. The minister greets the patriarch, who asks about the available swordsmanship units. He informs the leader that the first unit is resting, and the fourth is on standby. The leader then instructs the minister to tell the fourth unit to finish their preparations and come meet him. The young master thinks that he doesn't know whether this is a dream or reality, but the leader's gaze is still as terrifying as always. As the patriarch leaves, he looks at Youngchun and says that once the meal is over, he must come to his office alone. The protagonist is surprised and asks his guard if he has any digestive pills. By evening, at the dining hall, the boy thinks that the atmosphere is still the same and says that he can't even tell if he's eating through his nose or mouth. On top of that, the patriarch asked him to go to his office alone, and he thinks it would be great if someone could lighten the mood. The clan leader calls for Yongseo and says he heard she made progress in her martial arts. She cheerfully responds that she had a small epiphany, which made her a 3-star martial artist a few days ago. He replies that she's advanced for her age and tells her to keep training. She thanks him. The protagonist thinks it's impressive that she reached 3 stars at such a young age, but considers it expected, given her talent and dedication. He thinks that, at least she knows how to smile, and adds that she looks even prettier when she does. She notices him watching and makes a face at him. He quickly thinks better of his comment. The patriarch calls for the protagonist and says that others reported he had been out on the streets. He replies that yes, he had some matters to attend to, so he just stepped out. The patriarch gets thoughtful, stands up from his chair, and says that he'll leave first, but they can continue eating in peace. Young Chun thinks that he seemed like he wanted to say something else. He said he wanted to see him after the meal, so now he's unsure what the patriarch intends to do. A maid approaches him and says that the leader instructed him to rest well tonight and that he'll speak with him tomorrow afternoon. The young master asks if the leader has changed his mind. Later, in his room, he thinks that since he hasn't woken up, this isn't a dream, and says that this must be the famous regression he had heard about. Suddenly, he becomes serious and thinks that if that's the case, it means he could kill the celestial demon first. The boy quickly dismisses the thought, realizing it's an absurd claim that could be interrupted in the blink of an eye. He wonders how he could possibly kill the celestial demon when he had already killed all the supremes, those who claimed to be above the heavens. As he recalls his past life, while living as a damned demon human, he had allied with the celestial demon only to ensure a chance of survival. And through his memories, he can see that it brought him millions of regrets, but those past regrets helped him realize many things. If he truly has been reborn, this time, he will take a different path. Yang Chun thinks in his room that the celestial demon will be killed by Seol, leading to the end of the demon cult. Until then, he will live peacefully, doing his best. The young man thinks that he can't miss this opportunity, as he won't repeat the same mistakes he made in his past life. He sighs and concentrates his internal energy. Embarrassed, he says that he searched his whole body and this is all the internal energy he could find. Noticing his limited internal energy, he realizes how incredible his sister is, only 1 year older and already at 3 stars. But it's not like he can't do anything about it. He can train with the cultivation technique passed down only to the pure-blood members of the Gu clan, the Gu clan's flame circle, cultivating it slowly as if it were a flower blooming. Once he reaches the 4-star level, he will be able to emit fiery internal energy, and when he reaches 7 stars, he will be able to envelop his whole body in it. But right now, he's only a mere 1 star. While cultivating, he thinks he needs to gather as much internal energy as possible as quickly as he can and polish it until it becomes 2 stars, so he can live a peaceful life, different from his past one. He shouldn't borrow the power of demon humans, but get stronger with his own strength. The problem is that if he pushes beyond his limits, he could end up dying. With his current abilities, using his internal energy isn't easy. If he keeps trying, he might end up suffering from energy deviation. But he has achieved some results. He's in the early stages, but he's reached the 2-star level. With this, he thinks he'll continue, step by step, in a way that's not slow, toward a life different from his last one. He won't do anything foolish that could have a negative impact on his future. The next day when he wakes up, he thinks how it makes sense that his whole body hurts just from that training. He thinks it's his fault for not having trained up until now. The young man thinks he has a long road ahead. He'll go to the patriarch's office in the afternoon, so until then, he should train a little more. When he opens his bedroom door, he runs into Wisyola, who says hello to him. On a starry night, the sky begins to crack. A man looking at it says it's not a star, and wonders if it had always been there when, suddenly, the sky cracks open, creating a hole, leaving the man startled. One day, monsters crossed the space. It became known as the Gates of the Demon Realm. Each sect worked hard to create a group that could fight against the monsters. They were called the Sword Units. Every sect needed to have at least one. The Gu clan has 5 sword units. The older sister, Gu Hui Bi, was the commander of the 5th sword unit, and he, a tough guy, spent half of his life under her cruel leadership. That was where she officially met Wisyola. It must have been about half a year since the incident with the potato, though. Young Chun sees her in front of his room. Not believing it, he thinks that he must be going crazy and goes back inside. Wisyola grabs him by the shirt, telling him to wait. Then, she says it's a pleasure to meet him. Suddenly, her grandfather slaps her hand, saying he already told her that she shouldn't treat the young master any old way. The protagonist, confused, wonders what he meant by that. The old man tells her to apologize immediately. Wisyola says she's very sorry. He, not understanding, wonders what is happening. The old man, Wimun, bows and says that he will serve the clan leader in gratitude, acknowledging his weakness but promising to do his best. The young man, surprised, thinks that this isn't Wi Hyogun. The girl says her name is Wisyola, and she will be helping her grandfather from now on. Young Chun, not understanding, wonders what she means by serving. He sighs, thinking that if it's the clan leader's orders, then his father must have chosen this directly. The young man responds that it's a pleasure to meet them, thinking that he's already screwed, and his life hasn't even started yet. He asks Wee Mun if he can just call him Young Chun, as it's better than Young Master. Wee Mun replies that he understands and calls him Young Master. The protagonist, sitting on the floor, mutters that it's quite a broom. The old man merely nods. Young-chun wonders if this is really okay and looks at the situation. Two servants, along with Wee Seol-ah, tell her it will be dangerous to carry so many things by herself. The girl replies that it's fine. She can manage. One of the servants insists that she shouldn't be so stubborn and she will help, but Seol-ah says she's fine. Suddenly, she trips on a stone and falls, her clothes spilling onto the ground, hitting her forehead on the floor. Everyone watches in silence as she holds back tears. The protagonist thinks about how bad she is at domestic work and wonders how she could be so clumsy, considering she should have talent for martial arts. Young-chun stands up, and Seol-ah quickly follows him. He, confused, asks why she's not finishing what she was doing. She replies that she was told to follow him wherever he goes. He asks who said that. Seol-ah, irritated, says it was her grandfather. The young man says he understands. He thinks that his personal servant is Wee Seol-ah and figures they only gave her this job because they didn't want to deal with him. He reflects that, even as the son of a good clan, his personal servant shouldn't have been chosen so haphazardly. He thinks that while Seol-ah is decent, the supreme sword would be way too intense. After she tries to fix her clothes, Young-chun begins to do it himself, thinking if his father knows who the old man is, or if he just doesn't care, as many servants have quit. While getting ready, he thinks that his father told him to go to his room, and that he'll figure it out when he gets there, wondering what the hell is going on. The girl runs after him, telling him to wait. He asks where she thinks she's going and tells Wee Seol-ah to stay there and learn how things are done first. With tears in her eyes, Wee Seol-ah says she understands. The old man watches silently. The protagonist also remains silent. As he leaves, he tells the girl to learn how to do her job. She becomes all depressed. Before closing the door, the protagonist calls her and says he'll bring something tasty, so she should give it her best. Wee Seol-ah becomes all cheerful, thinking about sweets, while her grandfather just sighs. Young-chun thinks they've never been this close in his past life. He feels like he never talked to her this way. The young man wonders what to do when he gets there. He thinks that, when he hears what's being said, he'll ask why the girl and the old man are with them. Suddenly, his father appears behind him and asks what he's waiting for. He yells, startled by the sudden appearance, and the leader tells him to come in. The protagonist thinks that, after having cursed in front of the leader, his end should have come right then and there. The patriarch asks if he has seen the new servants. He answers yes and greeted them in the morning. His father asks what he thinks of them. He replies that he's grateful for being given a servant for his convenience, but he's still wondering about them. The patriarch drinks his tea and tells him not to ask yet, as he will know when the time comes. He says he understands. Young-chun thinks that his father must have left them as his servants, even knowing everything, and wonders if he made a deal with Wee Hyo-gun. The patriarch tells him not to worry about such things, and instructs him to prepare for the Unified Dragon Assembly tomorrow. He replies that he will do so. Distracted by his thoughts, he wonders what the Unified Dragon Assembly was again. When he remembers, he is surprised. The young master tells his guard to end him right there. Mu-yan asks if he hates going to the Unified Dragon Assembly that much. He answers yes. This was the important event where new members of the sword units were chosen, held every 6 months, for the sake of the sword units, who risked their lives to seal the gates of the demon realm, and for the sake of the Gu clan and the residents of Shanxi. It was written that those who had direct bloodline from the Gu clan were required to participate in such events. The protagonist tells his guard that he instructed him to end him, because he's sure he won't have to go. Mu-yan, holding a scroll, asks if the clan chief wouldn't personally take care of him. He says that even Elder Lee will be there. The young man is shocked when he hears the name Elder Lee, and the guard says that he was told he would be beaten if he ran away. The young man thinks, shit, I wish I knew who among all the elders. Elder Lee specifically is the most grotesque. He always believed he had to act with decorum, even though he was the only son in the family, which made him responsible for the honor and prestige of the clan. He is someone to whom he should be grateful, but he's also a rather busy man. Despite that, Elder Lee had been teaching him whenever he had time. Not even his father paid him that much attention. The young man says it's incredible how he managed to become a failure, despite all the lessons from him. Mu-yan asks what he's talking about, and the protagonist replies that he was just thinking out loud. Young-chun asks when they need to depart, and the guard says they will leave when everyone is ready. The young man asks Honghwa if she isn't ready yet. She replies that she was trying to take care of Seol-ah and apologizes. He questions if she's causing trouble again. The girl, somewhat embarrassed, starts walking toward him. He looks at her and turns red. Seol-ah asks the young man why everyone says she's beautiful. He, blushing, becomes embarrassed and thinks that she is really cute. She pulls her hair back and asks if he thinks she's beautiful too. He becomes completely red and changes the subject, asking what she's waiting for. She asks again if she's beautiful, but the protagonist, embarrassed, says he's leaving, making her angry. Later in the carriage, Wee Seol-ah, with her head out the window, says they're moving super fast. One of the servants asks if it's her first time riding in one. She replies that it is, and she thought horses were only for food. Yangchun asks the guard about the location of the Unified Dragon Assembly, and he responds that it will be at the Celestial Exchange. The protagonist thinks that it's the most famous commercial district in Shanxi, and that Elder Li has invested a lot into this event. Mu Yan says it will take a few hours and suggests that he sleep a bit, but the young man responds that it sounds good, although he can't sleep because of the training from the previous night, thinking that he hasn't been getting enough rest. The girl, speaking, says that horse meat has a stronger smell. The protagonist, irritated with her, yells and stuffs a sweet into her mouth, telling her to eat it. She stops talking and eats the sweet. With that, Yangchun lies down and thinks that it's finally quiet and that he'll be able to sleep a bit. Wei Xiaola begins calling the young master. Half asleep, he says he doesn't want any cookies. The guard asks the girl if she told Yangchun they've arrived. He hears this and gets up, starting to wonder if they've really arrived. They exit the carriage and are struck by the breathtaking beauty of the city at night. The protagonist, while exercising, thinks it's probably because of the grand festival in Shanxi, but he notices there are many people there. A man approaches, telling the young master that he must be tired from the long journey. He introduces himself as Chun Ishil, the merchant sub-manager of the Heavenly Exchange. He also mentions it's an honor to meet the ascendant star of the Gu clan. The protagonist introduces himself as Gu Yangchun of the Gu clan and expresses his honor at the meeting. Chun Ishil says that the first day should be calm, thanks to the efforts of Elder Li and Miss Gu, and offers to take him to his quarters. The boy remembers his sister and wonders if he will meet her. This concern soon becomes reality. As he approaches his sister, he greets her, but she responds by telling him not to speak to her because it annoys her. She says she doesn't believe he would cause trouble at the Unified Dragon Assembly and warns him not to disgrace the family with improper ideas. Yangchun replies that he will stay as quiet as a mouse and asks her not to worry about him. Yongseo, irritated, responds that she doesn't worry about him and gives them a serious look. Wei Xiaola, somewhat startled, hides behind the boy. His sister comments that she thinks old habits never change and asks if she's going to behave like she always does there as well. He asks what she means. Yongseo, entering her room, says she thought he had changed, but now believes people never change, and shuts the door. The protagonist asks what's wrong with her. Chun Ishil calls him to go, and the young master apologizes for the incident. Chun Ishil responds that it's no need, as siblings fight all the time. He adds that the young master must be very tired and urges him to go. Yangchun asks if they can stop by somewhere first. Arriving at the arena where the fights will take place, Wei Xiaola exclaims that it's huge and that she's never seen such a large building before. Yangchun thinks he's heard that merchants evaluate each other's financial power. He wonders how much money they must spend on these festivals. And so the festival begins, celebrating the sword units and their efforts. The duels to select new members will begin tomorrow. The young master thinks that the good thing is that those of direct lineage don't need to participate. The only thing he has to do there is watch. Nothing should happen if that's all he's doing. Suddenly, a voice behind him says that he didn't run away this time. Upon hearing it, he gets startled and thinks he should block. Elder Li pats his forehead and asks what the problem is. He asks the boy if he doesn't run away every time he sees the old man. The young master replies that someone said they'd cut him in two if he didn't see them. The old man asks who said such a cruel thing. Yangchun answers that it was the second elder. Elder Li remarks that the boy is even responding now. The protagonist thinks the second elder has a strange fixation on him, and figures it must be because he is the only son of the clan leader. Wei Xiaola, excited, says that he is a bear, and that bears are delicious, just like horses. The elder stares at her in silence. She becomes shy under his gaze while he continues to remain silent. Xiaola hides behind the boy, and he tells the elder that he's going to scare the others if he keeps staring like that. The elder stays silent while the protagonist says that he's starting to worry about him. The second elder asks if the girl is his concubine. Yangchun asks what he's talking about and tells him to take a look at her clothes, saying she is a servant. The elder responds that if that's what he's saying, it's fine. He says that tomorrow will be the Unified Dragon Assembly, but that the protagonist will only be a spectator. He suggests that the young master go to sleep. The boy agrees and wishes the elder good night. Before leaving, the elder tells the young master that if he runs away, it will be the end for him. Wei Xiaola asks if that grandpa bear is going to eat them. He replies that first he's going to beat them. Elder Li says that, as he thought, that kid has something about him. The day of the Unified Dragon Assembly arrives. Yangchun says he thought the assembly would start very early, but looking around, it seems like it will only start by noon. Mu Yeon says that's what it seems. The guard says that the numerous clans of Shanxi, or anyone who can prove their identity, agreed to participate, but he never imagined there would be so many people. The young master comments that becoming a member of the sword unit means a lot, and the guard agrees, saying that's true. Siola, frightened, hides behind the boy and asks if the grandpa bear is going to eat them, and if she can ask him to hibernate. He replies that it's spring now and says that if she's so scared, it's better to go back to the room. She responds that her grandfather told her to stay close to him. The young master thinks he can't tell her to put down the supreme sword. Yang Chun says it's fine because their guard can defeat the grandpa bear. She asks if he's serious. Muyan asks who that is. He replies that it's Elder Li. The guard asks how he can touch a finger to him and says that he should refer to him more respectfully. The young master says that in that case, he'll have to give Siola to him. She, frightened, says it's her end, but if everyone will be happy, she accepts. The protagonist says he's just joking. Siola says it will be the end of her. The boy responds that he was just joking. She, with water in her mouth, says that her grandfather told her that the ghost who ends up with a full stomach will look more beautiful, and that she wants her end to come after the dumplings. Muyon says that he treats the servant very well. The young master asks who. He replies that it's servant Wee. Youngchun responds, asking if he's seen things right. A servant begging for a dumpling. He thinks it's because he doesn't know how to treat her, and says she doesn't seem to understand what it means to be a servant. The guard says that even so, he still brought her. The protagonist says that's true, and remains silent while looking at Muyan. The guard watches him with a slight smile and says that he is really different from the rumors, and that he will never believe rumors again. The boy says he's overthinking it, because it's just dumplings. The young master tells him to wait and asks what rumors and since when he's the guard. Muyan replies that he thinks it's only been 2 weeks. Yang Chun thinks that the guard must have been hired before his return, which is why he said that. Suddenly someone shouts loudly saying, "Miss!" The boy gets startled. A maid tells her mistress that she shouldn't walk around alone because it's dangerous. The mistress replies that she's just being overly worried because the dragon assembly is being held. What else could happen, with so many people from the Gu clan around? The boy thinks the voice sounds familiar and asks if it could be. The maid confirms it and asks if she's going to run straight to the heir of the Gu clan. He, hearing this, says it can't be him because there are many men in the Gu family. The young lady asks her maid if she thinks that's going to happen, as there are so many people there. The protagonist thinks the noise sounds ominous. The young lady calls her maid and tells them to go quickly. As she turns, they meet. The girl is in disbelief. Muyeon begins to whisper that the expression of the young lady and her maid seemed like they had seen something terrible and asks if Yang Chun knows something. Yang Chun thinks there's no way he could have forgotten. Shoulder-length hair and eyes as black as obsidian. That ring on her hand bears a symbol that only appears when looked at closely. However, for him, who already knows what it is, the meaning of this ring no longer matters. The Hebei Peng clan, his former fiancée. The reason for the arranged marriage with the Hebei Peng clan, one of the 4 major clans, was simple. The Gu clan was as prestigious as the 4 great clans, and they had children of similar ages. He was destined to be the heir, as long as nothing happened. The Peng clan must have thought there would be no problems with an arranged marriage. The problem came from the complications he caused. All the rumors about him avoiding training and causing trouble. He is not favorable toward the Peng clan, and what really ended their relationship were the things he said to the girl. The girl, surprised, asks why he is here. He replies that the phrase is his, and asks why she is here. She says she had matters to attend to, and that they don't own Shanxi, asking if she should notify every step she takes. He responds that if that's what she says, it's fine. Miss Peng asks why he is being rude, and if he forgot that she is older than him. Young Chun says he forgot, so that settles it. He calls Shola, asking if she has bought the dumplings. She says yes. The protagonist tells Miss Peng that whatever it is she came to do, he hopes they have a pleasant stay and that they are busy. He then says, "See you later," and leaves. She, watching, remains confused and wonders why she had to meet him, just as she was already too busy dealing with her brother. She thinks she has never seen that girl next to him before and asks if she's a servant. She wonders if, with such a cute servant by his side, he could have changed. Miss Peng recalls the past she had with him when he insulted her and called her the daughter of a concubine. Irritated, she grabbed his shirt and asked what he said. He replies that it's not like he was wrong. She punches him in the face and says that she was willing to endure everything, even an arranged marriage. Even with all the horrible rumors about him, she would endure everything for the Peng clan. Her maid tries to calm her down, but she ignores her, stepping near his face. With a chair in her hand, she says that she doesn't care about the marriage and that he would meet his end right there. After recalling what happened, she thinks that nothing has changed since then and watches him. The protagonist helps Siola carry the dumpling pots, while the guard tries to help, but the boy tells him to just stay on watch. Miss Peng, watching from a distance, thinks there's something different about him. She thinks it can't be. He must just be in a good mood, and there's no way he could have matured. But maybe he has changed a little, just maybe. As they walk, Suddenly, someone shouts. Yang-chun says he's been getting a lot of scares. His guard asks if he's all right, and he replies that he is. Seola asks if the dumplings are all right. The gatekeeper says that this kind of problem won't be solved with shouting and asks him to calm down. The boy slams his hand on the table and says that he already told them he doesn't have time for this and asks if the gatekeeper will take responsibility if he gets caught. The gatekeeper asks what he means by caught. He falls silent as everything around him becomes still. The gatekeeper and the boy continue to argue, while Muyon asks the young master if they shouldn't help. He replies that anyone can participate, as long as they prove their identity. The guard says he's wondering if they should let this mess continue. The protagonist says that complaints about the entrance aren't anything new. One of the gate guards places his hand on the boy and tells him to stop. The boy grabs the guard's arm and throws him to the ground. The gatekeeper asks what he's doing. The boy says he's already proven his skills and asks if he can participate now. The gatekeeper says that after what he just did, of course not. He asks why not if he's already shown his skills. Muyeon asks if they shouldn't go help now. Seola says that what just happened was really cool. The protagonist calls for them to move on. His guard asks if he's really going to leave that man there. He replies that he doesn't want to deal with it and tells the man to get inside. The gatekeeper says that he can't just do whatever he wants because they have rules. Without an identity, he can't enter. The boy asks if his skills aren't proof enough. The gatekeeper replies that it's an even bigger problem. The young master, irritated, shouts at the gatekeeper, asking if he's disrespecting the young master of the Peng clan. The protagonist, hearing this, is confused. While Miss Peng listens, she is also confused. Yang-chun thinks about what he said and wonders if he really said he was the young master of the Peng clan. In the hell of the past, Miss Peng asks her brother what he's doing. He replies that he was warming up a bit because of the cold and took the opportunity to roast a sweet potato over the fire. The girl says she won't ask why he's doing this in front of her room, but questions what he plans to do with the plate in his hand. Her brother says that the sweet potato was taking too long to cook, so he used the plate to make the fire stronger. As soon as he finishes speaking, he gets hit on the head. He asks why she hit her own brother. She replies that he deserved it, and asks if he at least knows what he's holding. He answers that it's firewood. His sister says it's a plate that belongs to the leader of the Peng clan, a reward for graduating as the top of the class at the Divine Dragon Academy and becoming the youngest successor in history. She asks if he knows how many things he can do with that plate. The young Master Peng replies that yes, and says that making the fire stronger is one of them. Then, his sister starts hitting him, calling him an idiot, and says that he needs to act more like a successor. He stays quiet and says, "Successor, right?" The girl says that sometimes she can't guess what he's thinking because he's skilled and strong, and he's the next successor, but he seems dissatisfied. The boy, with a smile on his face, says not at all. He just wanted to leave this place. Miss Peng asks why he doesn't leave for a while and come back later. He looks at her with a surprised expression after hearing that. Then, he leaves a letter for his sister saying, "I'm going out for a bit. I'll be back soon." The girl, irritated, says that piece of crap. If she had known that his soon meant 4 months. Her guard calls her and says that the beggar sect has new information for her. With a mischievous smile, she says she'll finally find that bastard and asks where he is. The guard says he's in Shanxi. She questions why he went to such a far place. Back to the present, the young Master Peng, irritated, says that he has shown everything he can do. He then asks to be allowed to participate in the Unified Dragon Assembly. The gatekeeper tells him to calm down, as they are not in a position to let him in. He replies that he doesn't have time and asks if he needs to show the Dark Night Blade for them to believe him. Muyon asks the protagonist if he heard the boy. He asks if she's not the exclusive technique of the Peng clan and wonders if he's really telling the truth. He thinks it's better to leave before he ends up getting involved in some trouble. Elderly arrives and, placing his hand on the boy's head, says that, considering he brought the Dark Night Blade, he's not a fraud. Yang-chun thinks he's screwed. Elderly says that he seems skilled enough and asks for him to be allowed to participate. The young man introduces himself, saying he's Peng Wujin, the successor of the Peng clan, and says that it's an honor to meet the great master of the Pure Flame Fist. The elder laughs and says it's been a while since anyone called him that, but the gatekeeper warns that they can't confirm if he's the successor of the Peng clan. Elder Lee says he's sure he is. The gatekeeper asks someone like him. Lee responds that he's just like his father, with a physique exactly like the members of the Peng clan. The protagonist thinks he's saying this based on his physique. The elder says the black ring on his finger confirms his identity, and Yang-chun believes it's the same one Peng Hawaii used. Lee asks if he will explain why the successor of the Peng clan is participating in the competition, which aims to choose new members for the Gu clan. Peng Wujin replies that there's no fun in the Peng clan. The old man starts laughing and says that's not a bad reason, then asks if he has permission from his family. Yang-chun thinks that he must be crazy. Woojin replies that he doesn't think they would allow it, so he ran away from home. The old man laughs again and asks the protagonist if he heard that. Young-chun thinks he must be some kind of idiot. The elder says he seems to have been trained as well and asks how old he is. The young Peng says he turned 23. The elder says they're creating a monster and wishes the little idiot would learn from him. Moyeon tells the protagonist that he's not talking about him, while Seol-ah says that the grandpa bear called him an idiot. Yang-chun tells them all to be quiet. He thinks that if Woojin really is who he says, he will become a monster. In the not-too-distant future, he will be known as the Sword Emperor, Peng Woojin. The young master reflects that this means he really is from the Peng clan, and he remembers another member of the Peng clan present there. Suddenly, Miss Peng appears, calling out to him. Woojin recognizes his sister, and before he can react, she kicks him in the face, sending him flying. Irritated, she accuses him of claiming the title of successor and running away from home, leaving only a farewell note. He tells her to wait and listen to what he has to say, but she doesn't let him speak, continuing to hit him. She calls him crazy for leaving the clan to join another clan's unit. The protagonist watches the scene and thinks that he might really meet his end there, but Elder Lee intervenes, saying that they are tough and won't meet such an easy end. Woojin, desperate, starts pleading for help from the great master. Yang-chun asks if he's sure of what he's asking, and the old man replies that maybe he should stop them. Elder Lee, with a serious look, orders the girl to stop, saying that if she continues, she will be responsible for ending him. She defiantly asks who dares to interfere. Upon seeing that it's the great master Gu, she apologizes, saying she's sorry he had to witness this, and introduces herself as Peng Awi. The old man laughs, saying that he enjoyed seeing someone as entertaining as her. Peng Awi, now calmer, says she will make it up to him for the incident, and that they are leaving. However, Woojin insists that he won't leave. She asks if he wants to be beaten again. Woojin, with a serious expression, asks if she thinks he's joking. She falls silent, stunned, and asks what's behind his attitude. He replies that the Peng clan isn't fun and questions whether other clans, like the Gu clan, are more interesting. Awi says he needs to mature, as he is the successor of the clan, to which Woojin responds that he wants to have fun before becoming leader, because that's the only way to avoid the position. He doesn't want to be the clan leader and is willing to either end his own life or hurt himself even more than he already is. He says that, aside from her and him, the other clan members are just parasites using their name. He knows that one day he will be the leader, but it can't be now, not the way she wants. That's why he accepted the position, even though he doesn't want it. Yang-chun asks Elder Lee if he really will let him participate in the assembly, because he doesn't think it's a good idea to get involved with the affairs of another clan. Elder Lee, thoughtful, responds that he will allow Woojin to participate, but only if he wins against him in a fight. Awi questions this proposal, and the protagonist wonders if the elder has gone crazy with age. The elder, seriously, says that only 10 moves will decide the winner. Woojin, with a serious expression, asks if that's all. The old man, smiling, asks if he's ever lied before and says that as for the rules, he'll see them soon enough. Miss Peng tells her guard, Yobi, to hold Woojin, and Elder Lee says that if Woojin can touch him before the 10 moves are up, he will be the winner. Woojin, agile, seizes the opportunity and charges at the elder, appearing behind him with his sword. The old man starts laughing, saying that Woojin is too impatient, and with a quick movement, he turns and lands a punch on Woojin. As night falls, in the assembly arena, the announcer declares, Ladies and gentlemen, the wait is over. The time has come for the much-anticipated fight between the two stars who will illuminate the future of the Gu clan, Gu Yoseo, of the Flaming Sword, and Gu Yang-chun, the first heir of the Gu clan. The protagonist thinks about what he is doing, fighting against his own sister. Back to the fight between Elder Lee and Woojin, the old man lands a full punch to Woojin's face, sending him flying and knocking him unconscious. After a while, the elder declares himself the victor. Yang-chun, concerned, asks Elder Lee if he shouldn't have pulled the punch. The elder responds that it was a fight agreed upon by both, and he controlled his strength, ensuring Woojin would wake up soon. The young master says that if the Peng clan comes asking, he'll make it clear he won't get involved. The elder reassures Yang-chun, saying that he won't face the consequences alone. The protagonist approaches Peng Awi and says that all of this was the elder's idea. Awi, relieved, replies that it's all right, and that it's a relief to see Woojin in that state. She turns to the elder and mentions that if he had known what kind of trouble Woojin would cause, he would have suggested something more sensible than such a risky competition. The old man asks Miss Peng if that's what she thinks, as he only did it because he thought it would be amusing. Yang-chun wonders how he ended up becoming an elder. Seol-ah begins calling him, and he responds that he knows they need to escape from this bear soon. The girl, excited, comments on how the grandpa bear did everything so quickly and defeated Woojin, but Yang-chun thinks she's quite naive and wonders how she managed to save the world. Elder Lee tells Seola that she has a better eye than the annoying boy there, and says he will give her a gift, showing a honey cookie. Seola, happy, says she's always liked Grandpa Bear, and he replies that he knew she would say that. Elder Lee asks if Yang-chun is upset because he gave only one gift to his servant, and says that in that case, he needs to give a gift to him as well. Yang-chun says he doesn't like sweets, but the old man says that after the Unified Dragon Assembly, he will participate in the exhibition fight. Returning to his fight with his sister, she asks if he's not going to use a sword. He stretches and thinks that he used to use a sword. But the techniques of the Gu clan's Circle of Flames can be used with multiple weapons, especially effective with both the sword and fists. In the end, he realized that using his fists worked better for him, so he abandoned his sword. He then asks if this will seem strange. Gu Yongseo says that she doesn't mind whether he uses a sword or anything else, as she is just happy and grateful for the opportunity. The young master is confused. She says she will have the opportunity to beat her little brother without any problems, and to make it even better, in front of everyone. He remembers the conversation with the elder, questioning why he needs to participate in this, especially against his sister. The old man tells him he doesn't need to shout. Yang-chun, discouraged, says he didn't want people to leave thinking that the Gu clan is boring. He sighs and thinks that the elder is crazy, probably just finds this amusing, and that he will give in. The old man says that if he thinks of giving up, the same thing will happen to the young master of the Peng clan. The protagonist asks if he really wants to see him get beaten in front of an audience. Elder Lee asks Yang-chun if he really plans to lose. He thinks he can't afford to miss this unique opportunity to start over, and doesn't want to waste energy on a fight that never even happened in his past life. Gu Yongseo, in a guard position with her sword, tells her brother that he will only become the next leader because he's a man, and that she hates him to the core of her soul. At that moment, the judge signals for the fight to begin. Quickly, Yongseo charges at him, striking with her sword, but Yang-chun dodges. She strikes again, but he ducks, evading the blow. Yongseo spins her body and strikes again, but Yang-chun leans back, narrowly avoiding it. She wonders how it's possible for him, a mere 2-star, to dodge her 3-star strikes. He thinks he's managing by moving a little before her, but even that is leaving him breathless. He realizes this only shows he needs to train more and wonders how this will end, whether he'll get beaten now. He also wonders if he'll be in one piece after taking a hit from her. Quickly, she advances on Yang-chun, grabbing him by the shirt and saying that he still only knows how to dodge. She tries to throw him off balance by pulling him by the shirt, but he quickly spins his body, removing the shirt in the motion. Yongseo strikes again, but only cuts his shirt. He, irritated, tells her that if she keeps charging at him with such obvious intentions, it will only make it easier for him to dodge, and asks if there's a way for her to stop. He wonders how much hatred she has to rip his clothes like that. His sister says she was forced to accept that she would never be the leader of the clan, despite working hard. However, the thought of him, a worthless person who wastes his life, passing ahead of her just because he's a man, makes her furious. With that, she begins to exude her internal flame energy and asks if he can understand her rage. The protagonist thinks that she's imbuing her sword with martial energy, which is dangerous and well beyond 3 stars. With the sword infused with martial energy, she starts delivering several rapid strikes, one after the other, while he begins to dodge quickly. Irritated, she clenches her fist and says that, again, all he does is run away. He dodges the punch as she says that he does nothing. Yongseo slams her hand on the ground and kicks her brother, telling him he has no talent and doesn't even try to make up for it. She says that if he's going to live such a miserable life, he should just end it already. The young master stays silent, and his sister, crying, strikes again with her sword, but he, saddened, stands still to take the blow. Yongseo tells him to disappear, just like their mother did. Yang-chun grabs her sword hand, and with a sinister look, asks what she just said. Yongseo considers her brother the most aloof person she knows. At 15, she was given the title of Phoenix Sword, and at 20, she graduated at the top of her class from the Divine Dragon Academy, being named the 5th leader of the Gu clan's sword unit. Although she was widely recognized, she couldn't become the head of the Gu clan. However, the one who would become the head of the clan was the child of the concubine, Gu Yang-chun, but she didn't hate him. Although they were half-siblings, his mother had been kind to her, and she liked her as well, so she was at peace with Yang-chun. One day, she disappeared, and their father ordered that no one search for her, so no one did, and that's when everything began. Gu Yang-chun started speaking and acting rudely to everyone, and rumors spread that he mistreated his maids. Still, there were no changes to him becoming the next clan head, as the head of the clan had always been a man, ignoring her, who had worked so hard, and his extraordinary sister. She resented Yang-chun, who was so privileged without even knowing what he had, but she didn't hate him. Back in the present, when Yongxiu sees the sinister look in her brother's eyes, she feels fear and thinks that this is dangerous, quickly jumping back. The protagonist, irritated, quickly appears behind his sister and punches her, leaving her startled. Peng Aoi says that Yongxiu is the same age as her, but is much more talented, and mentions that she can't act like she's special just because she's a Peng. Her maid says that she's doing well. Aoi says they're murmuring something and asks her guard if she can hear what he's saying. The guard replies that no one can hear them. Wu Jin says that Elder Li released his internal energy, so there's no way to hear them. His sister tells him not to walk around talking about being from the Peng clan with that face. He asks if she's ashamed of him, and she tells him to wait until the swelling goes down. Her brother asks if the fighters are the siblings of the Phoenix Sword. She answers yes, saying that Yongxiu is amazing, that she's 3 stars, and her swordsmanship is smooth. Wu Jin says it's not her, and wonders if it's the younger brother of the Phoenix Sword who's dodging. Ahui looks confused, while her guard says that both of them are siblings of the Phoenix Sword. Wu Jin, excited, says that means the Gu clan doesn't just have the Phoenix Sword. The girl, looking at him, thinks that when he becomes the clan leader, he won't be able to see that with his own eyes. Suddenly, he says he just saw the fight. Yongxiu dodges the protagonist's punch and thinks that she just needs to dodge. With her sword, she tries to strike him in the neck, thinking that the opportunity is hers. Yang Chun says that he understands how she feels, so it's all right if she hates him, as he's lived his life like that. What she said is annoying, but he will understand. Then, she will understand if he does this too. The protagonist, with his left hand imbued with the power of flames, lands a solid punch to his sister's face, knocking her unconscious in the arena. The judge, unable to believe it, shouts that the fight is over, and the winner is Gu Yangchun. Yangchun, sitting alone on the bench after the fight, exclaims, "My God." He thinks that winning wasn't in his plans, and that an internal energy of 2 stars would make her bleed from the nose and lose consciousness. He starts to remember what his sister had told him earlier, and feels depressed, alone. Suddenly, Muyan and Xiaola appear calling for him. The guard asks if he's okay, and he responds that he is, asking how things are inside. Muyan says that it might make him feel bad, since everyone thought he'd be beaten. The atmosphere became quite agitated. The protagonist says that it makes sense for a scoundrel to defeat a rising star. The guard says that, although the tension has calmed down since the second elder settled the matter, the boy asks him to leave then. Xiaola tells Yangchun that his hand is bleeding. He says it's proof that he can't control his energy properly. The protagonist responds that it's no big deal. Xiaola starts bandaging his hand, awkwardly asking if this is how it's done. He replies that he doesn't think so. Crying, he says that he can't do it right and apologizes. She says that she can't do it properly either. Suddenly, Wu Jin appears, saying that he doesn't like seeing young Master Gu hurt. Yang Chun tells him to read the room and calls him a bastard. The protagonist introduces himself to young Master Peng, and he introduces himself as well. Peng Aoi, with a trembling voice, asks his brother to leave soon. Wu Jin says it's fine and mentions that it must be embarrassing for both her and young Master Gu since they were previously engaged. He tells her to take the opportunity to reconcile with him. Yang Chun asks why he's here. Wu Jin asks if it wouldn't be good to make connections and become friends, and asks him to call him brother. The protagonist responds that getting close to people like him wouldn't bring any benefits. Wu Jin is surprised to learn that the Gu clan has hidden talents beyond the Phoenix Sword. Yang Chun says that, judging by the fact that he mentioned Gu Huibi, he assumes that he knows his sister. Wu Jin replies that they are very close, but he doesn't know what she thinks about that. The young master thinks that then, they aren't so close. The young Peng asks the young master if that means they are close. He just laughs. Wu Jin says that it's getting late, and that he's leaving. The protagonist notices something and sees Ahui standing, looking at him. Yang Chun asks her if she has something to say. She says that on the day their engagement was broken off, she thought it was because she hit him with a chair. The young master interrupts, apologizing and saying that he shouldn't have called her a useless concubine. He says that he was immature at the time, but he's not the same now. He did something to fix the situation, so she doesn't need to apologize. Peng Aoi remains silent, happy, and smiles, saying that it's fine then. As she leaves, she tells him not to lose what his brother gave him. He asks what she's talking about and finds a plaque with the inscription, Peng. He asks what it is. She says goodbye and leaves. Yang Chun thinks that there are still many things he needs to fix and calls for his guard and maid to leave. In the Gu carriage as they leave, the maid tries to wake Xiaola, who is unconscious on top of her. The protagonist, near the window, thinks that no matter how hard he tries, he cannot remember having fought his sister in his past life, much less defeating her. He reflects that, starting with Xiaola's maid, so many things are beginning to diverge from the past he knew, and wonders if that small act of kindness changed something. He sighs and decides that, once they return, he will need to act faster than expected. Yang Chun senses something and instructs Muyan to check the demon detection amulet. The guard begins searching for it. Upon retrieving the amulet, Muyan reports no changes, stating he isn't sure what Yang Chun felt, but reminds him that the amulet will start glowing if demons are nearby. Just as he prepares to suggest that the young master rest, the amulet begins to glow. Muyan quickly shouts for everyone to stop and declares it's a demon portal. He commands everyone to take combat positions, emphasizing the importance of ensuring the young master's safety. The guard cautions Yang Chun, saying it's dangerous for him to be outside. Yang Chun acknowledges the danger but firmly states he'll listen to sermons later and orders Muyan to look ahead. As he speaks, the portal starts opening. Yang Chun observes the portal's green hue and notes aloud that green signifies the lowest level of danger, though it could still be tricky. Monsters begin emerging from the portal. Imbuing flames into his hand, Yang Chun swiftly punches a monster, thinking it is entirely manageable. Extracting the monster's stone, he notes that demon stones are their universal weakness, similar to a heart, and once removed, the monsters die instantly. Another monster lunges at him from behind, but he easily dodges and counters with a punch to its stomach, remarking that it's simple as long as he keeps extracting the stones. He retrieves another demon stone but suddenly feels his energy dissipating and reflects on how difficult it is to maintain the Goo Fire Wheel arts. As more monsters charge toward him, he resolves to rely on the Fire Wheel arts to survive. Muyan calls out to Yang Chun and appears before him at incredible speed, wielding his sword. With ease, he dispatches the monsters. Yang Chun is astonished, wondering if Muyan has always been this strong. The guard asks if Yang Chun is okay, and he replies affirmatively, saying he was saved by him. The young master then inquires if it's over, and Muyan confirms, explaining there weren't many monsters from the start and that they were fortunately of the lowest class. The guard reproaches Yang Chun, asking what he was thinking and warning about the risks if he had gotten hurt. Yang Chun concedes that the effort was worth it, but the guard insists it's not that simple. Suddenly, Yang Chun's left hand begins emitting a purple energy. Noticing it, he collapses in pain, screaming. All the guards rush to the young master, asking what's happening. Writhing in pain, Yang Chun wonders why he feels this horrible sensation. He realizes it is the celestial demon art, which absorbs demonic energy. Looking at his hand, he identifies it as the demonic well absorption art. Abruptly, he starts recalling his past life, specifically a battle against another sect. The sect disciple asks why he did this and screams, asking what they did to him and why he is doing this to them. Yang Chun calls him the blade that splits flowers and asks if those are his last words. Suddenly, he sees something falling beside him. When he realizes it, he shouts the name of the sect leader. A huge silhouette then covers everything around them. A person on top of the dragon says that the flower was not terrible, and the protagonist bows as he notices. The person jumps off the dragon and approaches Yang Chun. They tell him that it wasn't nearly enough to satisfy them, but that, with that said, they managed to get a little pleasure from it, and ask him to lift his head. In that moment, the protagonist notices the fire burning. He asks what it is, and realizes that the fire wheel art is purifying the demonic energy, but then notices it is actually consuming it. He says this never happened in his past life. When he opens his eyes, he sees Muyan and Siola calling him, asking if he is okay. He gets up and says he is. The young master says it's nothing, and he thinks he was hurt more in training than he expected. His guard says he will look for medicine. He says he's fine and thinks he should hide it for now, as nothing good will come if people find out he absorbed demonic energy. Siola, crying, says he looks hurt and asks if it's painful. He says it shouldn't be that bad. Siola says his face looks bad. He, irritated, asks what she said. The maid tells the girl to help the young master, not to irritate him. Muyan offers to look for a nearby pharmacy. Yang Chun says it's not bad and tells him not to worry, as he just needs a good night's sleep. As everyone starts to gather their things, he thinks he no longer feels demonic energy in his body and wonders if the fire wheel did something. With the demon stone, he thinks its color has faded, meaning the energy has been absorbed. He thinks that, anyway, he needs to move and crushes the stone. The next day in the city, Xiol-Ah calls the young master excitedly, showing honey cookies. He says he doesn't care and walks past her. She asks why he brought her if he isn't going to buy honey cookies for her. Yang Chun says he had business in the market but used his grandfather as an excuse for her to follow him. His guard asks why he came to the market and says that he hasn't recovered yet. He suggests that if there's no reason for him to be there, he should return home. He asks if he's looking for something and offers to help him search. The protagonist says he understands that he wants to help, but now is not his time. As they walk, he suddenly stops. Looking to the side, he says it seems to be the case. Muyan asks what it is and what's in that alley. Yang Chun tells Siola to go back home and calls his guard to follow him. He tells Siola to return to the clan and inform them that he'll be back later. The girl looks hesitant, but the young master says he'll give her 10 honey cookies if she goes home. She responds with dumplings. He says it's fine, and they make the deal. The boy calls his guard. When he asks where they're going, he replies that he'll find out soon. As they walk, the young master says it's this way. Moyon says this place is very dangerous. He responds that yes, it is. After walking a bit further, he finds the place. Yangchun says he was worried it wouldn't be there. The guard asks why he needed to come here, and the boy asks if it seems strange. Muyon says yes, more than the appearance. He has a feeling about the building itself. He says he has sharp senses. They enter the building, and people inside start wondering who the kid is and what they should do, whether they should finish him off. Muyon becomes serious and gets on guard. One of the people calls out and says that this is not a peaceful city to be meddling with and asks what brought him here. Yangchun says he's here as a client. The man says he seems to have some attitude and asks if he thinks he'd solve things by cutting his tongue off. The guard asks how he dares speak that way, and the protagonist tells him to step back a bit. Then, the young master tells the man that he knows who he is from the moment he stepped in, and asks if he's worried about the Gu clan cleaning up the area. Yangchun says that before things get to the situation he's afraid of, he asks them to bring the regional manager. The man says he doesn't know where he learned that, but he's seriously lacking in something called respect. At that moment, people begin to draw their weapons. The boy says that they don't seem to be the respectful type either. Their leader commands them to grab him, and they rush at them. Mu Yeon quickly draws his sword and tells them not to think about touching the young master, charging toward them and easily defeating them. The leader, seeing this, thinks that the kid is still the heir of the Gu clan and must have some crazy bodyguard attached to him. He thinks that he can't take him to the regional manager and wonders what he should do. One of the guards tells the captain that the regional manager has something to say. He thinks the boss must have heard already and must be in trouble, asking what he said. Young Chun, seeing them talk from a distance, thinks they're plotting something and realizes he has no choice. Just as he was about to give an order to the guard, the captain calls the boy and tells him to sheath his sword because the regional manager wants to meet him. The young master says he should have said that earlier, orders his guard to put the weapon away, and tells him to follow him. Muyon says he doesn't understand, and Young Chun responds that it's no big deal, explaining that he was planning to go to the Beggars sect. But there were some problems. The Beggars sect managed to secure a spot among the top 10 sects just with information. Since they are still part of the Orthodox sects, they don't take jobs that would cause trouble. He thinks what he needs to do is a bit problematic, so he decides he needs to go somewhere else. If the Beggars sect is the best in terms of information among the Orthodox sects, then the place for the unorthodox sects is the Hao sect. He went to the Hao sect. Descending the stairs, the leader greets him and introduces himself as Wunchu, the leader of the Shanxi branch, and says he didn't expect a visit from someone like him. He then apologizes for their aggressive behavior. Young Chun says there's no need for an apology and asks if he will accept the commission. Wunchu says that before that, he needs to ask why he didn't go to the Beggars sect from the prestigious Gu clan, but came to them, a small and unorthodox sect. The protagonist responds that he came because the Beggars sect cannot handle this commission, and asks why Wunchu keeps trying to investigate. Wunchu apologizes if he made Young Chun feel uncomfortable, but due to his surname, they have no choice but to be cautious. The young master replies that he understands and asks if he will accept the commission. Wunchu says that the Hao sect cannot refuse commissions as long as the price is paid. The boy says he will consider it as if Wunchu is accepting the commission. Yang Chun says he's looking for someone, a boy who is now just over 10 years old. Wunchu takes the paper to look at it and says that he thinks he needs to take back what he just said, as he believes he won't be able to accept it. The commissioner he had before wasn't looking for the child, but for the whereabouts of the person protecting him. The protagonist asks if, even though the commission fee is for the leader of the Hao sect, Wunchu is still going to refuse. The guards around Wunchu quickly draw their swords to attack, but Muyeon easily blocks the attack with his sword. The young master says he thought he wouldn't act aggressively. Wunchu, leader of the Shanxi branch, serious, asks how he knows that. The protagonist replies that he's not there to speak in riddles and asks if it's not important that both of them have information about what the other needs. The leader of the branch asks if he can verify the truthfulness of the young master's information. The boy says that he should confirm it himself and carefully consider such matters, as it's something he has to do when in a desperate situation. The young master says that if Wunchu doesn't need it, he can forget it, as he will go to the Beggars sect and perhaps slip some things about the leader of the Hao sect to them as well. Wunchu says he understands. The young master of the Gu clan asks how long it will take. Wunchu answers that it will take at least 3 months. The protagonist says that's fine. As he leaves the room, he says that when he finds the person, They will exchange more information. Yang Chun notices that the leader of the Shangxi branch seems a bit anxious. Thus, he says, the sharp mountain range, and that this is his advance payment. The captain of the troops asks if he believes the boy's words, and Wunchu replies that, given that he knows information about their leader, he has no choice but to believe him. Wunchu thinks about what's happening, seeing how skilled the guard accompanying the boy is. The boy must have known they would act aggressively like this. He thinks that this information can't be something only the young master knows. He's sure the Gu clan leader is involved as well, so he starts removing his skin mask. The captain of the troops asks if it's okay for him to take it off. The leader of the Shanxi branch responds that he was feeling suffocated, and that there is no one watching now. Anyway, the Hao sect typically doesn't respect, trust, or follow the sect leader. That's why he had been hiding to avoid those pursuing him. He starts thinking about his father. When Yang Chun leaves the Hao sect, he sighs and thinks that, if it came to this, he would have told the leader to come at him. But it's a relief that the small information he knew turned out to be useful. What he knows is that the leader of the Hao sect was captured by the Black Knight Palace for over 5 years, and as a result, the Hao sect and the Black Knight Palace went into battle. The Murim alliance made a surprise attack, leading to the collapse of the Black Knight Palace and the end of the battle. However, during the battle, the leader of the Hao sect died, resulting in the extinction of the Hao sect. Still, he doesn't know the exact location of the Black Knight Palace and thinks he got lucky. The fact that such information worked is thanks to the Hao sect's Shanxi branch, and the fact that he knows the branch leader. This is quite annoying, but he needs to do it to find him. The boy, who achieved a high administrative position in the demon cult at a young age, the strategist known as the brain of the demon cult, Zhuge Hyuk of the Celestial Fang, is thinking about finding and putting an end to him. After all, even Wi Siola had trouble because of his tactics, and if he doesn't deal with him in advance, Zhuge Hyuk will assist in the demon cult's advancement. Muyon says that, although he doesn't know who he is looking for, if it will take 3 months, he will only hear from them around the summer, and says that the people of the Hao sect aren't as informed as the rumors say. The protagonist replies that yes, he will only be able to catch him in the summer. He becomes pensive, and wonders why he thought about this now. He also wonders if it wasn't around this time that the secret chamber of the Jinchuanyan clan, operated by the First Merchant Association, was discovered. The countless riches stacked inside don't matter. What matters are the priceless spiritual pills. A person who ascended to a high stage through the power of these spiritual pills would later become a demonized human, a great source of power for the celestial demon. Yang Chun thinks that Zhuge Hyuk is a problem, but the secret chamber is also an issue. Even if he wants to avoid it, the secret chamber is in Sichuan. He thinks he has no choice and will just give up, as there's no way to go to Sichuan and find such a well-hidden place. Elsewhere, Seol-ah, surprised, asks what he's talking about. A boy says he asked what she thinks about going to him, and yells that he'll make her happier. Then, a method rolls right in front of her. Elder Lee tells Seol-ah's grandfather that he forgot a leaf and says he came because Yang Chun was causing problems, claiming that the cause of all this was the old man, and begins laughing. The old man laughs, but Lee tells him to stop laughing and go back to work. Suddenly, the old man breaks the broom and asks the elder what he thinks he's doing. Elder Lee says he is helping to disguise the character as a servant of the Gu clan, when the old man suggests that he help sweep the floor. Lee responds that he broke the broom, and the old man then tells him to tear out his hair and make a new one. The old man says he doubts he came from so far just to see the boy, and questions whether he didn't go to see him. Lee asks the old man Hyogun if he also felt it, and says that the boy, who refused to improve his movements and ran away 6 months ago, defeated his sister. Furthermore, the flow of the flame circle art has stabilized, and asks if he doesn't think the boy has tremendous talent, saying they can't just leave him alone. Wi Hyogun says that he doesn't know if he would call it talent, as he's never seen anyone improve so quickly in his life, and thinks something must be going on with that boy. Hyogun says the first elder won't stay still if he finds out and may have already done something. Lee responds that he's that type of person and asks where the boy is, doubting he'll cause trouble with so many people watching him. Back to the boy flirting with Wi Siola. She looks confused as the boy asks what she thinks about going with him, claiming he could make her much happier than Yang Chun could. People, listen to what Siola is about to say. She had a dream last night, but it was a very bad dream because she hurt many people in that dream. Her grandfather knows she hates holding a sword, yet he still made her hurt many people in that dream. Siola wanted to stop, but she still went into a house to hurt them, and the man there, with a faint smile, says that if she had a bit more time she could have finished it. She stares at him while he hurts her with the sword. With a trembling voice, she apologizes and asks Chu to forgive her. She had the nightmare and then woke up, but because she wanted to see the young master due to the shock she experienced, the maid told her to hurry to the courtyard. However, Seola arrived before the young master, so someone else was in the courtyard instead of him. He told her he would make her happy, but Seola is already happy by the master's side. Then, the young master saw what happened and made a scary face again. Afterward, Young Chun apologizes, saying that she is his servant, and asks who the boy is. He thinks this is the guy asking for Seola, and notices he's all flushed, saying he doesn't even know where he's from but already hates him. The boy apologizes, saying that he offended young Master Gu. The protagonist asks if he knows him. The boy replies that he does and introduces himself as Gu Juliop, saying he would like to request a duel with the main family lineage. Young Chun, smiling, says, "Rejected." Juliop is confused, while the young master says that he won't fight. He asks if he's running away, and Young Chun replies that yes, he is. The boy asks if he's afraid, and the protagonist responds that yes, he is. Gu Juliop, irritated, says that it's pathetic he's running away from something like this. Smiling, he adds that his observation is that he is indeed very pathetic. The boy stays silent, while the young master thinks about how he already caused problems fighting with his sister, and wonders if he thinks he would make the same mistake again. Young Chun, leaving, says he's going. Suddenly, Elder Lee appears and asks why he doesn't accept, saying he came from very far just for this. The young master asks what brings him here. Juliop greets Lee, and he greets him back. Young Chun asks if he knows him, and the elder asks if he doesn't remember, saying he's the first elder's grandson. The protagonist thinks he does have a similar face. The old man asks Juliop if he wants to fight, and he replies that he does, but the young master is afraid. Young Chun says he's more into flirting with girls. Elder Lee asks if that's an order from the first elder. The protagonist wonders if that's the case, and says he thought he was interested in martial arts, but in the end, it was just politics. It's no mystery that the first elder is an ambitious man, someone who is waiting for the moment when he, a useless heir, inherits the clan. However, after seeing someone he thought was useless defeat Gu Yonseo and ruin his plans, he must be trying to bring him down again through the grandson. The young master tells Elder Lee that he already said he has no intention of facing him. The old man says he came from very far. Young Chun replies that it's obvious he would lose, so why would he do it? Lee says he has the impression that Young Chun won't lose. The young master replies that it's clear he is stronger than his sister just by looking at him, so he doesn't want to fight a losing battle, much less get involved in politics. Juliop tells them to wait, and grabs Seola's hand. The boy tells Seola that he feels the young master doesn't deserve her, and says that if she comes with him instead of him, Young Chun interrupts. With a sinister look, he orders him to take his hand off and follow him, saying he will accept the duel. In the arena, the protagonist sighs and thinks that he's starting to regret all of this. Elder Lee tells him not to speak like that, and says he's going to fight against a new martial artist, and this will help him improve his martial arts. Young Chun says it's fine. He then says that since things have gone as he said, he needs to do a favor, win or lose. Lee says there's no reason to do him a favor, and he'll lose if he loses here. The young master says he's wrong and says he doesn't want to become the clan leader. Elder Lee asks what nonsense he's talking and asks who else could become the clan leader if not him. The protagonist thinks that he already gave up on this in his past life. With a smile, Young Chun says he will roll on the ground and surrender if he doesn't do him a favor. Elder Lee says that he's far from charming, but with a condition. The boy asks what the condition is. The old man says that he will do him a favor if he wins. Juliop asks if he's warmed up. Young Chun replies, "More or less." The boy apologizes to the young master and he asks what he's talking about. Juliop says he overdid it in last year's duel against him and never imagined he'd be bedridden for a month afterward. The protagonist thinks that was a long time ago and that he doesn't remember. Juliop says that back then, he thought he was very weak, but he heard that he defeated Yeonseo, though he believes it was a coincidence. However, his grandfather doesn't think so, but he doesn't like to harass the weak. What he hates even more is when a weak person becomes the clan leader. He then begins to infuse martial energy into his sword. He tells the second elder that he would also like something if he wins the duel. Lee says that's fair, and asks what he wants. Juliop says he wants his maid. The protagonist starts laughing. Angrily, he insults him. The second elder tells him to stop laughing and orders them to fight. Young Chun, standing still, exuding his fiery aura, asks what he's waiting for, and says that it's polite to let the weaker opponent attack first. Juliop asks if that's why he's not afraid. The boy thinks he's sure that he's better than him, whether in internal energy, speed, or strength. He asks if it's because of his aura, but he thinks it can't be, as he has flaws everywhere. He thinks that he's pushing himself to the limit to deal with the internal energy he's emitting. It makes sense that he's tiring out faster since he doesn't have much energy. Now, he must be out of energy. Young Chun asks if he said he could be the first to attack. Juliop tells him to come. Quickly, the protagonist appears behind him, preparing a kick in the air. When the boy notices, he dodges the protagonist's kick. The boy says it was a good move, but that he's too slow. The young master seizes the chance and clenches his fist, landing a punch to Juliop's face. The punch catches him off guard, and Youngchun quickly capitalizes on the opportunity, delivering a kick that strikes Juliop's face and sends him crashing into the arena with full force. The boy starts coughing, while the protagonist tells him to get up, saying he's still going easy on him. He tells him not to cry about being caught off guard and asks if he's finished. Juliop apologizes for underestimating him, and the young master says that they'll finish it here. The boy says he hasn't attacked yet, and that he thinks it won't be as easy as he imagined. He gathers energy in his sword. Youngchun thinks that he would use internal energy by exhaling it as he is, but to fight against someone stronger, he needs to release internal energy within his body to reinforce it. However, his body still can't handle internal energy this way, and if he overexerts himself, it could cause an energy deviation. The protagonist believes he has 7 minutes and needs to finish the fight within those 7 minutes. The sword technique he uses begins and ends with utilizing the frictional force between the sword and the scabbard. If he just keeps an eye on that, while thinking, he notices Juliop is about to attack and dodges his sword strike. The boy, with his sword, spins quickly, delivering several consecutive blows, but the young master manages to dodge them. He thinks that his techniques are so connected and natural that he can tell he has trained a lot. However, this means that if he interrupts him, he won't be able to do anything. Thus, with his hand on his chest, Youngchun begins gathering energy, while Juliop takes advantage of the opening and quickly appears behind him with his sword. Youngchun, clenching his fist, creates an explosion of fire behind him, pushing Juliop back. The moment he releases all his heat energy is enough to end the fight. The boy, protecting himself, asks how he managed to release that kind of energy. Taking advantage of the opportunity, since Juliop defended against the explosion, Youngchun strikes him squarely in the stomach with all his strength, throwing him against the wall. The protagonist asks if he knows what he hates most. Juliop, vomiting, thinks he can't move. The young master says that even if he insults him, acts like a scoundrel, or tries to take his position, he doesn't care. But he tried to take something he shouldn't have dared to covet, and that he hates deeply. The young master thinks that he doesn't like seeing someone try to take something they don't deserve so easily, and wonders if he should break his arm so he never tries something like that again. He believes that would sound good, so his right arm should do. Suddenly, Elder Lee appears behind him, saying that he did a good job. The elder says it's enough. Lee tells Youngchun that he was too harsh. The young man responds that he should have been prepared for that, stood up, and left alone. He must be fine. Lee asks if he's not worried about the first elder. The boy says he doesn't care about becoming the clan leader anyway. The old man, angry, tells him not to say that and asks who else could be, if not a direct descendant. Youngchun looks at Seol and asks if she wants to be. She asks if she gets food for that. The boy says as much as she wants. The girl says that her dream now is to be captain here. The old man says not to joke about that. The protagonist asks who cares and says maybe just her. Suddenly he thinks, when will she learn to wield a sword? If she was called the direct disciple of the supreme sword, she must have learned from him. But the girl only learned household tasks and doesn't think she was always so dumb either. Youngchun tries to remember when he met Seol. He wonders why he can't remember, as it shouldn't be something easily forgotten. The girl asks if he's okay. She says she knew he hurt his head in that fight and asks the young master to make her captain before he goes to the heavens. The old man stands up and says they'll talk about it later, as he's sure the young man is tired. The protagonist asks where he's going and says he needs to keep his promise. Elder Lee asks what he wants, if it's money or food. He replies that it's neither, and says that he's powerful enough to help him with something difficult. He points and asks the elder to send him to Sichuan. The old man is confused. The boy asks if he can't do that because he's the elder. Lee asks why he doesn't just go. The boy is confused. The old man worries for no reason, but the protagonist explains that he said Sichuan, not the market, and that the clan's only son shouldn't wander around without a good reason. Elder Lee tells him to just go to the Tang Weapons exhibition. The young master is confused. The Tang Weapons exhibition is an event held every year, where the Tang clan invites other families to showcase weapons made by craftsmen. Lee says he doesn't need to participate, but can use it as an excuse to go. The boy says that actually, it was a joke, and that he was asking for money instead. The old man says then he really wants to go and says he didn't even notice, and that getting old is really scary. The boy says that if it's not money, at least a spiritual pill. The old man, excited, says fine. He will send him to Sichuan as quickly as he can, and says he'll show the power of an elder. Youngchun tells the elder to retract what he said and give him something else. The old man shouts that he'll send him to Sichuan right now. The protagonist says there's no way this is possible, as he would need to report it first and prepare. Suddenly, Elder Lee shouts that it's an urgent order from him and tells them to send the young master to Sichuan immediately. The servants say they're ready to leave. The young master is confused by everything, not believing it, while the two elders stand at the gate saying goodbye. Wee Hyogun calls Elder Lee to work. He asks if Hyogun needs something too. Hyogun says, "Of course," and asks if he wants someone like him, an old man, to do all the work. He grabs a broom and ponders. Lee says he's bored and asks Hyogun to listen to his concerns. The old man says he rushed the young one just to tell him his worries. The elder says that the clan leader asked him about the immortal doctor, and it seemed like he was asking why someone requested him. So he asks Hyogun why the immortal doctor. The old man falls silent. Lee says that if he's not going to speak, he'll change the subject and asks about his granddaughter. He says she didn't seem human and asks what she is. Hyogun responds that he's crossing the line and calls him by name. Serious, Hyogun tells him to be careful with what he says. The elder says that if she were human, he would feel her presence, just like his own. The liveliness of one's presence varies from person to person. But when he first met her at the Unified Dragon Assembly, that child had no presence at all. Lee says that if he thinks the immortal doctor could cure her with divine abilities, he should give up because he knows it's not a disease. Why Hyogun gets serious, summons several energy swords, and tells the elder to stop, saying that child is human. Elder Lee gets worried but says that if Hyogun insists, he won't speak further. He adds that if Hyogun wants to defend her, he should just do it, as what he wants doesn't matter, and questions what if she's not human. Hyogun says he just needs to help make up for what she lacks in humanity, and if needed, he'll give his life for her. A few hours later, the Supreme Sword will realize that Wisiola has disappeared. Muyan says they just need to prepare the food now. The maid says it will still be a few days until they reach Sichuan, so they'll have to ration the food. The guard asks where the young master went, and the maid says he's going to train until everything is ready. Muyan says he must be bored. The protagonist, while waiting, begins practicing several martial arts moves. He sits on the ground and thinks that although he's practiced some moves, he's already out of internal energy. It's been 10 days since they left, and despite the constant training, he doesn't see any progress. The biggest problem he faced during the fight against Julop was his lack of energy, as the foundation of all martial arts is internal energy. He needs to increase his internal energy and recalls what happened. He thinks that absorption art is a way to gain internal energy, whether from a demon stone or a spiritual pill. However, he also ends up absorbing demonic energy into his body, which corrupts the user. For some reason, the fire wheel purified the energy. After that, he didn't feel any more demonic energy, so he feels that he could increase his internal energy without side effects. But that's still the martial art of the celestial demon. It's better not to use it since he barely escaped and can't return to the demonic path. Suddenly, he hears a scream and feels confused. The guards ask what's happening, and he asks what's going on, now hearing the commotion. When he arrives, he asks Muyan what happened. She responds that it's in the carriage. He goes to see. When he sees Seol calling her, she laughs and says she ended up following him. Sometime earlier, the servants and guards were preparing the carriage to go to Sichuan. The girl asks her grandfather if she can go too. The old man says no, as she's still bad at household chores. She questions why he let her go last time. He asks if she's talking about the assembly. He says there were people who could prevent her from making mistakes, but this time, there will be no one. He asks if she understands and tells her to help him carry the things. Seola says that the young master said he wouldn't be back for an entire month, but it's true that she's bad at household work, and the young master hates useless people, so she has no choice. Suddenly, someone tells her to wait. She looks back but sees no one, getting scared. The girl starts searching and says there's no one, but mentions she heard the voice coming from the box. A hand appears behind her, pushing her. She loses her balance and falls into the supply box. She asks who pushed her and says they shouldn't have done that. Seol-ah starts to get scared when a hand appears behind her. The girl says she needs to get out of there when the hand makes her fall asleep. The girl says she's feeling sleepy and falls into the supply box, sleeping. The ghostly voice apologizes to her. In this way, the servants finish the preparation and tell the young master that the carriage is ready. The ghostly voice says it's leaving this in her hands. Seol-ah says that's what happened. Everyone falls silent after hearing what she said. She gets embarrassed and shouts that that's what happened. Young Chun says he's already heard this the first time and then says that she was possessed by a ghost. She confirms that's exactly what happened. The protagonist tells her to go back. He thinks that's what she should have done while they walk toward the carriage. Seol says she saw an owl and has tried to eat one before. She says owls are very soft. As they walk, she sees a squirrel. The young man asks if she also ate a squirrel, and she asks how he could do that, calling him cruel. Young Chun thinks he should send a guard to take her back, but she's too far, and they don't have enough food for that. The girl, holding a worm in her hand, tells the young master to trade it for a biscuit. The young master throws the biscuit away, making Seol scream for her biscuit. He says he should have sent her back, Suddenly, the protagonist feels demonic energy and calls his guard. He responds that he's already aware and tells everyone to stop. Yang Chun says he knew it was too peaceful to be true and says it seems like there are 4. The boy feels one of the demonic monsters vanish, then feels another disappear. The last one appears near his window. As he gathers his internal energy, a girl tells them to retreat and appears behind the monster, drawing her sword. She easily cuts the monster down, defeating it. The white-haired girl puts her sword away and tells Muyan that she couldn't handle them properly because she was alone. Seol asks who she is, and the boy says he has no idea. Seola calls to her from a distance. Yang Chun, from afar, is confused when he realizes who she is and remembers his past. The girl says it seems like they're going to Sichuan and asks if she can go with them, introducing herself as Namgung Bia. The young master wonders what this crazy person is doing there. Returning to the past, during the war against the celestial demon, the protagonist tells Namgung Bia that she is the only survivor and asks if she killed them all. She asks what the cult leader said. He responds that they told him to bring her there and that they would drive her mad like a lunatic. The girl asks if the last part was something he said. He replies that she has enough to understand that. He then calls her to go and tells her it's not that way, directing her to go left, but then says it's actually to her right. Yang Chun sighs and tells her not to do anything strange and just follow him, saying he's already tired from just dealing with that. Bia says she has something to ask him and questions if the Supreme Sword is strong. The protagonist says that the Supreme Sword is someone the cult leader will deal with. She asks how his swordsmanship is and whether it's stronger than hers or the leader's. Yang Chun stops and sighs. Gathering demonic energy in his hand, he calls her crazy and throws the energy towards her. She stands still and quickly cuts the energy ball, creating an explosion. Annoyed, she asks what the hell he's doing and if he wanted to fight. He sighs again, points at her, and says this isn't the right way, asking if she understands what he's saying and that she should just follow with her mouth shut. As they walk, she calls him. Angry, he says if she mentions the 3 Supremes again, he'll finish her off. Bia points her finger and says this path looks like a shortcut. Yang Chun asks what the hell she's saying. Then, she disappears, while the protagonist sighs again, calling her crazy. He reaches the destination in a day, while Namgung Bia took 4 times longer. Returning to the present, Bia says they're going to Sichuan, and if it's not rude to ask, she wonders if she can accompany them there. Yang Chun says no, they aren't going to Sichuan, and thinks he'd be crazy to get involved with the crazy woman again. He says more importantly, they can't just take her word for it that she's from the Namgung clan. Bia asks if she's not. She then focuses and starts using her lightning technique. He thinks it's the ruler's sword style. When she opens her eyes, an explosion occurs. She says that's all she can show for now, as she's not yet proficient. Muyeon quickly advances on her, sword at her neck. Bia asks if that's enough proof. The young master says she is really from the Namgung clan. He says he's sorry to say it, but he definitely thinks they shouldn't associate with someone with such frightening martial arts. Later, at dusk, Bia is by the campfire, cooking a frog. Seol, watching from a distance, says it looks like she's going to sleep there. Yang Chun says he knows, and thinks he's relieved that she didn't say anything when he rejected her. He didn't think she would follow them, even after saying they weren't going to Sichuan. He thinks ignoring her is the best option, and tells Seol not to do anything unnecessary, like talking to that woman. He realizes she's gone. Seol, talking to Bia, says she can peel the frog's skin. At that moment, the young master pulls her and asks what she's doing. The girl says that the young Namgung was going to eat a frog, so she was helping her. Bia keeps staring at him. The boy says he understands that she is part of the Namgung clan and asks why the daughter of such a prestigious clan is traveling alone to a distant land. The girl turns her face, embarrassed, and says they left together but she got lost. He thinks he already knew. She has no sense of direction. Yang Chun says they're not going to Sichuan, then asks why she's following them. She responds that she has a hunch they are, but it seems they really aren't going to Sichuan. Seol-ah looks at the young master, confused, and then at Bia. Surprised, she yells at the young man, asking if they are not going to Sichuan. He thinks he should have sent her away. The boy says they can't stop her from going in the same direction, but he won't do anything for her. The girl says her name is Namgung Bia, and he replies that he already knows. Bia says she's introduced herself and asks if he could do the same. He thinks for a moment and says his name is Gu Juliop. She looks confused, and he says he's Gu Juliop from the Gu clan. 2 days after the event that made him feel guilty about Gu Juliop, Yang Chun watches the 2 of them from inside the carriage while Seola and Bia chat. Seol asks if she's ever eaten squirrel. Miss Namgung responds that she hasn't. Seola got out of the carriage and was sticking close to Namgung Bia, chattering away. Naturally, their pace slowed down. The young master tells Seol to get back in. She asks if he's going to let her in as well. He says it's obvious that he won't. She says that In that case, she doesn't want to. Bia asks if she can get in. He asks who she thinks she is. Youngchun asks his guard how much longer it will take. He responds that they would arrive in a day at their original pace. The boy asks with their current pace, and he says it will take about 3 days. Muyeon says that, although he doesn't know why, he's cautious around her, and asks if he can't travel with that girl. The protagonist sighs and asks if he has a choice. He says he'll reconsider his options at a nearby village. So they arrive at the village. The young master asks his guard if it's still 1 more day. He replies that it is, and it's good they don't have to sleep in the desert tonight. Miss Bia arrives right behind them, carrying Seol on her back, while Seol says they're going to sleep together. Youngchun asks if he allowed this, and tells Seol to get down from her back. He asks Bia if she's carrying a maid. She says her legs were hurting and tells Seol to get in the carriage if her legs are sore. The young man says they're here now and tells her to stop being rude and get down. Shola points her finger and says people in the same outfit as her are coming. Suddenly her brother appears, shouting her name and asking where she's been and if she knows how long he's been looking for her. Bia apologizes and says she got lost. Her brother says they were supposed to tie ropes to each other. She says that would have been embarrassing. He asks if that's why she disappeared in less than a day and says he was very worried about her. He notices the others and asks who they could be. Seol introduces herself and says he is her young master. Youngchun tells her to get down right away. The protagonist thinks that if he's her brother, then the boy must be the future Lightning Blade, one of the 5 great swordsmen of Murim, the current Lightning Dragon, Namgung Chunjun. The young man introduces himself and apologizes for the late introduction. The protagonist introduces himself as Jeoliup and says it's an honor to meet him there. The boy says he's being too kind. Then he becomes serious and asks why Youngchun is with his sister. Young Master Gu says they met by chance on the way and are heading to Sichuan. The girl says she thought he wasn't going and mentions that she walked all the way there. Seola looks at them seriously. Chunjun says his sister intruded on his group and asks why they don't stay in one of the rooms they reserved. He replies that it's fine and that he did what was natural. Youngchun thinks that he doesn't want to get involved with the crazy woman again and is sure they found another 4. Muyeon says that apparently there are no more rooms, and the protagonist tells him to prepare to camp. His guard says they've been camping for 2 days and asks if he plans to make them sleep outside again. The young master replies to Chunjun that he'll accept his offer then. The first thing Bia did as a demonic martial artist was neutralize her own clan, her brother, the clan leader, and all the disciples. After that, she achieved the title of Demon Blade Empress and began her rise to fame. The protagonist thinks about how much she must have hated them for doing something so cruel to her clan, but he doesn't see any problem besides her relationship with the Lightning Dragon. What intrigues him more is the Namgung clan's secret art, the sword form of the ruler. He feels that it must be stronger than her brother's, but at this point, she has neither fame nor a title. He thinks her brother seemed normal, yet there may be something he can't uncover. Leaving the room, he sees Chunjun and greets him, thanking him for the room. He bumps into Youngchun and arrogantly says that he should know his place. The protagonist is confused. Young Master Chunjun says he was being polite, but Youngchun doesn't know his place and says that he doesn't deserve to speak with his sister. Annoyed, he says that he doesn't know how Youngchun seduced his sister, but if it happens again, he'll cut him in half and insults Seol. When his sister appears, he quickly changes his posture, saying that he's grateful for helping someone from the Gu clan. He then calls his sister to have breakfast and drags her away. The young master, incredulous, says that they are all crazy. Muyeon asks the protagonist if he slept well and mentions the young master of the Namgung clan. Youngchun tells him not to mention them and asks when they'll leave. His guard says he's finished the preparations and can depart after breakfast. The boy says he's relieved that at least they're normal and says they should hurry up. He thinks he wants to distance himself from the Namgung clan as quickly as possible. When the young master enters the dining hall, he sees Seol and Bai eating. Seol says the dumplings are really good and tells him to have some. Bia says he can have hers too. Youngchun asks if they need to eat together and says it's fine for Seol to eat with him, but he doesn't think Bia should be there with them. He asks if she shouldn't be eating with the people from her clan. Namgung Bi says she only sat where it was closest. The protagonist says that her brother is looking at him as if he wants to end him. She looks back and says that's not true, asking if he's not okay. Youngchun thinks that he doesn't seem okay. While the young master eats, he thinks that he doesn't know what Bi is doing, but this is the last time he wants to see them until the Tong Weapons exhibition. The young master says he's leaving. Seol says he hasn't finished eating. He responds that he's full and thinks that after this, they'll never meet again. As Youngchun leaves, he tells Bia to enjoy the meal. She stays silent and smells a strong odor covering her nose. Suddenly, her brother appears calling her and asks why she didn't sit with them since they were there. Namgung Bi looks at him and feels a sinister aura coming from him. She says she sat there because it was more convenient. Chunjun tells his sister to sit with them next time. She agrees and apologizes. She looks at the protagonist and the others, thinking that if she stays, she'll be trapped in this darkness. Thus, Bai gets up. Chunjun says she hasn't finished eating yet and asks where she's going. She says she's going to rest in the carriage. Young Master Namgung, looking at them, snaps his fingers. Annoyed, he says he hates when people interfere in his relationships. Later, Yang Chun asks why she's still following them. She responds that she's not following them, just accompanying them. The protagonist tells her to put it that way and asks why she got on the carriage, even though her companion is right there. Seola shouts that she brought her there. The young master, irritated, tells Muyan to take the two of them away. He replies that they'll end up leaving on their own. Sometime later, the guard informs the young master that they've arrived in Sichuan. The Tang clan of Sichuan is an extremely prestigious Orthodox clan that has its roots in the Sichuan region for centuries. The precision of the Namgung family, the vigor of the Peng clan of Hebei, and the precision of the Moyong clan. The Tang clan may seem lacking in comparison to the other clans, but they are known as the best poison manipulators and steel workers by far. The Tang weapons exhibition is the result of this confidence. Yang Chun thinks that 3 days. He needs to find the treasure in 3 days, after the Tang weapons exhibition ends. What he knows is that he's in Sichuan and the general area, but thinking about it, how is he going to find it in such a big city? He thinks he might have to leak this to the beggar sect, so he needs to hurry as much as he can. Suddenly, he looks to the side and sees Shola. He thinks he got startled and wonders what she's doing there. The girl, excited, says it's the first time she's been in such a high place, and the wind feels so fresh. With a smile on her face, she tells the young master that the fireflies are dancing under the moonlight. The protagonist stays silent, while Seol says that Bia talked about a beautiful lake there and pulls the young master so they can look at it together. Arriving at the lake, he says it's really huge, just like she said, and asks how big a clan has to be to have a forest like this inside it. Seola calls him and picks 2 flowers, asking where she's hiding. The boy tells her to stop it. Seol says she just wanted to cheer up the young master. He says it's not something she can help him with and asks the girl not to worry. He then asks where someone would hide valuable items in the forest. Seola, annoyed, asks why they would need to hide it. He responds that he's not asking for emotional support. Suddenly, someone appears, asking who they are and saying that strangers are not allowed to enter. Yang Chun thinks that, speaking of the Tang clan, he had forgotten about her. The one who, alone, stopped the swarm of thousands of demon humans attacking Sichuan, the Poison Queen, Tang Soyol. A green-haired girl from the Tang clan gets angry and asks who they are. A woman he ended in his past life. He begins to remember his past, when he asked her if everything was ready and called her the Poison Queen. She, blind, asks if it's the young master. Yang Chun says it's a foolish sight, since her relatives had deserted long ago, and asks what she thought would change if she guarded the place alone. She responds that nothing would change. He questions why then. Soyol asks the protagonist what brought him there. Annoyed, he grabs her by the neck and says it's a stupid question to end her. She smiles and says she understands, apologizing to the young man. Yang Chun asks if she's gone mad, apologizing to a demon human, and calls her the Poison Queen. She answers yes, because she believes her sanity has finally broken, and says there are many things she only sees now after losing her sight, and that she should have given up earlier. The protagonist, irritated, asks if her nonsense is over, and if that's all she has to say. Soyol says it's selfish of her, but if there's still time in the world, before he ends her, she will hear her final request. After her final words, the protagonist, thinking, says she's disgusting. Back in the present, Soyol, angry, shouts if he's not going to answer her. Yang Chun thinks she's still the peak of poison now. The girl, irritated, says that if he doesn't respond, she'll call the guards. Baya pulls her and starts whispering in her ear. The girl asks why she only said that now. Miss Namgung replies that she never asked. The green-haired girl introduces herself, saying she's Soyol from the Tang clan, and apologizes for raising her voice to a guest. The protagonist introduces himself with the wrong name and apologizes for not answering due to the surprise. Soyol gets serious and asks what business brings him there, stating that non-members of the clan cannot stay there. Yang Chun asks if B isn't a stranger, and she replies that relatives are allowed. The protagonist thinks she's sending him away because she didn't allow him to enter, and calls her petty, thinking he was going to leave anyway. He then bids her farewell. Yang Chun and Seol leave, and Soyol tells B that Juliop is really rude. Bia stays silent and asks why she looked at him with so much anger. The girl says she didn't like the way he apologized, even after pointing out her mistake. The girl, blushing, says she hates guys who act rude just because they seem a little handsome. After speaking, she stays silent, thinking. When she realizes she called him handsome, she becomes embarrassed. Bia stays silent and wonders if he really is handsome. Soyol, blushing, says that simple guys, even if they're a little ugly, are the best. She sighs and walks away, saying, "Boys are all the same." The protagonist thinks that the Tang weapons exhibition is tomorrow, so he should train in his free time. When he opens the door, he runs into Namgung Chunjun and Namgung Ba. Surprised, he asks what's going on today. B says food, and Yang Chun asks what she means by food. Chunjun says that the Tang clan invited them to a meal, and his sister decided to invite them too. The protagonist says he understands and thanks them for the offer, but says that his personality is a bit shy, and he would feel very uncomfortable. Irritated, he thinks that they didn't get the message to leave him alone. B looks confused while her brother grabs him by the arm and tells him not to act like that. He squeezes his arm tightly and, irritated, tells him to come with them. The protagonist, angry, thinks, "What didn't that idiot hear about not wanting this?" He wonders if Chunjun is really willing to threaten him and drag him there. Enraged, he begins to release his martial aura, leaving Chunjun shocked and unbelieving. Yang Chun thinks that he messed up. Laughing, he says that he doesn't think he can refuse such a considerate invitation, so he will eat with them. Thus, the young master pulls Chunjun and calls him Mr. Namgung, with a mischievous smile, telling him to keep smiling as his lovely sister is watching him. Chunjun grits his teeth, irritated, stays silent, and thanks Yang Chun for accepting. Yang Chun replies that it's no problem and asks how he could refuse a request from the Tang clan. Seeing the food, the protagonist thinks he knew Sichuan was famous for its spicy food, but if the dish is entirely spicy, how do they expect him to eat it? The Tang clan leader's son, Jo Yok, says it's nothing impressive, but hopes he likes it. Yang Chun thinks that maybe the dumplings are edible since they are a bit less red. When he goes to eat, he notices Soyeol watching him. He thinks, what's her deal? And remembers she always looked at him that way in his past life. He can't believe he has to endure that same look again. When he bites into the dumpling, he feels his tongue burning and thinks, why is it so hot? Bia gives him a mug of drink and tells him to drink it. He thanks her. While he drinks, Bi hands him a piece of meat and says it's not spicy. Yang Chun turns red and asks why she acted so casually. Bi apologizes. Across the table, Chunjun, irritated by this, breaks his chopsticks. Jo Yok apologizes and says the chopsticks seem to be broken. Young Master Namgung says it's his fault, as he usually uses the chopsticks with a bit of force. Soyeol walks over to the protagonist and sits down. He's confused and asks if she has something to say. She shouts that she doesn't. The boy says it seems like she wants to say something. Soyeol Tang asks Yang Chun if he likes anything when she is interrupted by Chunjun, who asks Jo Yok if this is the lower and training field. He answers that it's their clan's exclusive training area and asks if he didn't show him last time. Jo Yok says that, honestly, no one uses it because everyone has their own personal training area. Namgung Chunjun says he would like to visit and asks if it's okay. Jo Yok responds that, since everyone has finished talking, they should go. The protagonist wonders what he's up to. Upon arriving, Chunjun says it's quite large. The young Master Gu thinks that it really is big. The eldest son of the Tang clan says that the ancestors thought bigger was better, but he doesn't really understand. The Namgung boy says there must be some meaning behind it. Jo Yok says that his sister used to frequent the field to beat him, but now that she's grown, she doesn't fight him anymore. Soyeol feels embarrassed looking at the protagonist, and he thinks he's thankful he doesn't have a sister like her. Chunjun grabs a wooden sword and says that now that they've eaten, how about moving around a bit to digest? He asks Yang Chun what he thinks about having a sparring match with him. The young master thinks he knew it, because his face is full of intent to beat him, and questions if he thinks he will follow his plan. The protagonist laughs and says someone like him, a third-rate fighter, fighting against the great lightning dragon. Suddenly, Soyeol Tang screams that it's unacceptable, and says that the two have a huge age and skill difference, and that he might hurt his face. Young Master Chunjun says neither of them will use internal energy, and that they should make it more like a mentorship sparring. With a sarcastic smile, he asks the protagonist what he thinks. Yang Chun smiles and thinks that not using energy seems fine. He asks if Chunjun can take it, and Chunjun looks confused. The young Master Gu gets closer and asks if he's skilled enough for that. Jo Yok, incredulous, says that he might have spoken a bit rudely, but he's still superior. Young Master Namgung laughs and says it's fine. Angrily, he says he'll see how good the protagonist is. The two head to the training field. Chunjun says he'll allow it. He's interrupted by the protagonist, who says he'll let him attack first. He gets irritated and says he won't refuse then, and charges, saying he'll attack first. Thus, the young Namgung strikes with his sword, but the young Master Gu easily dodges. Chunjun spins with his sword and attacks again, but the protagonist dodges, throwing his face back. He thinks both the attacks were just for show, but now, the real attack begins. Without giving time, young Master Namgung quickly charges again, but Yang Chun dodges again. Miss Tang is surprised watching their fight. Tang Soil has always been a little different, even as a child. While children her age chased dogs or cats, she played with wild animals like wolves or tigers. Her slanted, fierce eyes and growls revealed sharp fangs. Like apex predators, they exuded an unattainable aura. This power, which set them apart from other weak animals, was what fascinated her the most. Because of this peculiar taste, the young girl had difficulties finding love. Soyeol lies on top of a wolf and says, "If there's someone like Donglang, I hope to meet him at the Tang weapons exhibition." She says she doesn't understand how girls love Chunjun with that feminine face and asks if there's no man like Donglang. And so, she finally found the love of her life, someone she never expected. When she met the protagonist, she wonders why her heart is beating so fast. She believes that's not good. She must be confused, a lapse in judgment caused by the cold morning air, and thinks he'll be like the other ugly heirs when she wakes up tomorrow. At the banquet, she watches him and thinks his eyes are really cool. She thinks he can't eat spicy food, and she finds that cool. She thinks that even when he drinks water, he looks cute, and before she knows it, she's sitting next to him and doesn't even know when she got there. She wonders if this is the love she feels. Then, maybe she can take another step. Back to the fight, suddenly a piece of wood flies and embeds itself in the ground. Bia watches while Soil blushes and gets excited, seeing that Yang Chun managed to break the wooden sword. Chunjun is in disbelief that his sword broke. Soil falls to her knees on the ground, completely flushed, continuing to watch the two. Young Master Namgung wonders why his sword broke. Angry, he thinks he made sure the protagonist could react to his two attacks to toy with him, but then he gave it his all. Yang Chun says that the so-called geniuses seem to have the habit of daydreaming while fighting, and says that if it were a real battle, it would have ended 3 times already, asking if he knows that. He then attacks, throwing a punch, but Chunjun quickly jumps to the other side, dodging the blow. Chunjun thinks he's attacking an opponent who is without a sword, and the protagonist speaks from behind him, telling him to grab a complete sword. He says he told him this was a mentorship sparring, and asks him to teach him something. The white-haired young master grinds his teeth in anger. Yang Chun asks if he's the one teaching him, saying that education isn't his strong suit. Suddenly, he notices something and sees young Namgung emitting internal energy and imbuing it into his sword. Quickly, he attacks with lightning energy, but the protagonist ducks and takes the opportunity to punch him, since he's using internal energy. Chunjun uses his sword technique, striking several cuts with his energy, but his technique is broken. He is in disbelief, thinking that it's impossible for an idiot like him to be stronger than him. The young master Yang Chun defends the attack and says he's already let him off the hook too many times, calling him a bastard. He then delivers a well-placed kick between Namgung Chunjun's legs. The kick was so strong that it went inside, leaving everyone shocked. The white-haired boy is motionless, thinking he might have broken something. He falls to the ground in pain. The protagonist crouches beside him and asks if he slipped. Chunjun starts screaming in pain and calls him a bastard. Yang Chun says that from the way he's speaking, it doesn't seem like anything is broken. The white-haired young man calls him a coward and asks if he thinks he's a warrior. He says he will spread the word to all the families so that he won't even be able to lift his head in public. The young Master Gu asks how many people he has killed and believes it must be at least a few dozen. The boy is surprised and asks what he's talking about. Yang Chun lifts him by his shirt and holds his arm with the other hand on his shoulder. Jo Yok, shyly, says he thinks it's better to end the fight there. The young man asks if he hasn't realized the mortal danger he brings and questions if he thinks he made a mistake for being young, even though he's older than him. The young man from the Tang clan says he's from the Namgung clan and asks if he doesn't know what will happen if he does something worse. The protagonist responds that he's holding back a lot because he's from the Namgung clan. Otherwise, he would have already done something bad. Joyok asks what he's going to do then. At that moment, all he hears is Chunjun scream, and he places his hand on his head, worried. The young Namgung grits his teeth in pain in his shoulder. As the young master walks away, all he hears is the scream of pain. Yang Chun thinks if he'll have problems and what the elder would say if he told him he beat up the son of the Namgung clan. He thinks he can get away with it if he explains the situation and has witnesses to prove it. As he walks away, Bia pulls his shirt sleeve and asks him to tell her his name. The young man says he already told her it's Gu Juliup. She says that's a lie. The boy asks why she's there, and if it's to avenge her brother. She stays silent, staring at him. He thinks that even with her brother like that, she doesn't even blink. Bia approaches him and asks him to say his real name. He stays silent and asks why she's speaking informally. The girl, stunned, apologizes. The boy asks if he tells her his name. Will she stop following him? The girl says yes. He feels embarrassed and says his name is Gu Yang Chun. She smiles after hearing it. Back in his room, the protagonist thinks he can't go to the weapons exhibition after what happened, but at least he gained an extra day to search for the treasure. He stops and starts to think about what his guard will say after hearing what happened, and believes Mu Yeon will be worried about him sending the young Namgung flying, and he won't want to leave his side. He becomes thoughtful. Seol-ah is on the balcony waiting for the young master. When Mu-yeon rushes into the room, looking for the young master, he sees Seol and asks if she's seen Yang Chun. She answers that she doesn't know. While he searches for him, he asks where the boy went. The girl asks why he wants to know. The guard says he left in the morning for a meeting with members of other families but hasn't returned. Worried, he asks what he's going to say to the others. Seol notices something and suddenly becomes serious about something. The Jeumcheon family was one of the major martial arts families and had operated the largest shop in the central region for centuries, producing the best warriors and controlling the flow of money in Zhongyuan. The Jeumcheon family, which seemed unshakable, eventually disappeared due to internal strife. No one knows for sure the reason for its downfall, but according to records, they hid all their treasure under a white maple tree. Yang Chun, in the middle of the forest, says there aren't even maple trees, let alone white ones. He sits down and says it's not even autumn yet. What's this story about a maple tree? And by this point, it must be rotting. The protagonist says he hasn't eaten all day, used up energy in the fight, and is now climbing the mountain. Suddenly, Seol appears beside him with a biscuit and asks if he wants to eat. He says, well, being called a piggy does have its advantages. She replies that she's not a piggy. Yang Chun asks if her bag is full of food. She answers yes. The young man says that's good because he was thinking of going back due to his hunger. The girl says, then, she helped. When the protagonist notices, he shouts, asking why she's doing this. Seol-ah starts laughing. After they start eating, Yang Chun says she realized he had disappeared and that people are looking for him. He asks how she knew where he was. She says it was intuition. Seol says that now that she's here, he doesn't need to worry. The young master tells her to sit down, or the food will collect dust. He thinks that while the hunger was solved, he has no idea where the tree is, and even if he stays here, there's no guarantee he'll find it. Gu Yang-chun says that having a white maple tree at the start of summer must be a joke. The girl says no, because she saw it on the way and thought it was very beautiful. While he eats, he says it must be gorgeous indeed. Suddenly, he realizes and asks what she said she saw. Seol responds that she saw it with the young master. He's confused, not understanding, and she starts laughing. Arriving at the location, the protagonist asks if she's saying this tree is the white maple tree. She says yes. He tells Seol to find a doctor and take care of her eyes, and asks what world she's in, where she sees a white maple tree. She asks if he's the one with problems in his eyes. Yang Chun starts to leave and says it's his fault for believing in her nonsense. Seol-ah gets mad and says she's not a liar. Suddenly a voice says she's not wrong. The girl's hair starts to move. The protagonist thinks he just came here to make sure, but in the end, nothing was resolved, and wonders if he can find what he needs in the time left. Instead of wasting time here, maybe it's better to go back to the clan and receive training from the elder. He looks back and asks what that was, seeing Seol-ah near a portal. He shouts, asking what she's doing and tells her to get out, thinking it's dangerous. The girl starts to raise her hand toward the portal. He runs toward her, calling her crazy. When she touches the portal, a huge explosion of energy occurs. In this way, a massive portal begins to open and shine brightly. While the young master places his hand on his face, he notices and is surprised, seeing the area around them change completely from dead to full of life, revealing the white maple tree. Seol-ah turns around and smiles, saying she's here. Gu Yang-chun wonders what's happening, since until now it was just a dead tree. He doesn't know what she did, but the space opened up, and he wonders if it was some device to hide the treasure. The protagonist asks Seol what she did. The girl asks what he's talking about. He says she did something, and the tree appeared. She, not understanding, asks what she did. The young master says that when she approached and touched, the tree appeared. She looks lost and confused. Yang Chun gets irritated but soon sighs and says that she really didn't do anything, thinking it's better to leave it for later. Walking around the tree, he thinks he found it but wonders where they hid the treasure. While looking at the tree, the protagonist notices something strange and goes to see. As he gets closer, he sees a giant purple portal. The young master, looking at it, asks if the treasure entrance is beneath the tree. Seol-ah answers yes, it's the entrance, and jumps toward the portal. She looks back, calling him. He gets irritated and jumps, saying there's no other way. Someone from the outside watches them from a distance and calls them shit. Inside the portal, Yang Chun says it's a good thing the fall wasn't too hard, considering the height. He sees Seol and goes to her, saying it was dangerous, and notices there are two paths. She wonders which way to go. Seol points and says it's that way, claiming she's sure it's that way. He questions her but remembers that she found the tree and says he'll go the way she said. The girl asks why he's listening to her today. Behind them, someone approaches. Meanwhile, Seol shows the way. The protagonist asks if she's sure it's that way. saying they've been walking for a long time but still haven't reached the end. Yang Chun says the path is getting darker because the glowing stones are scattered. Seol tells him to trust her. They walk a bit further until Seol Ah says they've arrived, showing a dark room. The young master tells her to be quiet, observing the stones around. He asks what those stones are and says that, unlike before, the glowing stones have lost their shine, and there's nothing in the room. He questions where the treasure is when suddenly, Seol screams for the young master. Scared, she says there's something there. Suddenly, something white starts moving in the room. A huge serpent appears. Seol and Young Chun get scared and say it's a monster. The girl hides behind the protagonist. The young master tells her to stay quiet and wonders if there was a monster in this place. He believes the room was empty and asks where it came from. If it's this big, it must be at least a blue-class monster. He thinks it's lucky that the monster is asleep and hasn't seen them, and if they leave quietly, they'll be fine. Suddenly, the white serpent opens its eyes. Young Chun wonders why it woke up just now and asks if they'll have to fight. He believes they can't win and asks if they'll be okay. Seol starts shaking with fear. The protagonist says that he finally got a chance to live in peace, so he can't lose it easily. Annoyed, he thinks that, even if it's his end, he'll fight. The serpent calls to him and tells him to calm down. He's surprised and asks if the monster spoke. The white serpent says it has no intention of hurting him. The young master asks how she can speak the human language. The monster says it's curious how someone without Gumshan blood managed to get this far. Young Chun says he just found it and got lucky. She notices something, sees Seol, and says she understands, asking why she came here. The protagonist says he just entered by accident and thinks that if the snake has any relation to the Gumshan family, it might be angry at him for stealing the treasure. When he realizes, he thinks he just spoke formally. The serpent says it understands and states that it doesn't seem like there's anything left for him to covet. The monster calls to him and asks what he thinks destiny is. He asks what kind of idiotic question that is. The white serpent looks confused and starts laughing. The young master thinks about what happened and asks if she's gone crazy. The monster then says it understands but comments that he asked a rather strange question. From the moment he, who doesn't carry the Jumshin blood, arrived, they should have known they were going to meet their end. In the end, knowing they would disappear, why did they resist? And for what? Young Chun grabs Seol and says he's leaving. The serpent hands him a yellow pearl. The protagonist asks what that is, and she tells him to consider it a payment for keeping her company. In any case, it would end up in someone else's hands, so it's better to give it to someone whose fate crossed his. The young man wonders if it's a spiritual stone. The monster says that with something like that inside him, he will accept it more easily than others. Gu Young-chun asks what she means by something inside him. Suddenly he falls to his knees and thinks he was sure there was no energy from a spiritual stone. He believes this must be the work of demonic absorption, but the sensation is very different from when he absorbed a spiritual stone. More and more he feels the greater energy from the stone and struggles to accept it. When Seol places her hand on his back, the energy calms down. The young man, exhausted, asks who it is but falls to the ground drowsy. The serpent then asks if she's satisfied. Seol responds that it's not about being satisfied or not. The serpent asks Seol what she thinks about gathering energy now, because if she keeps releasing such strong energy, it won't just be a fainting next time. She says she already knows everything. The monster says that, in fact, she twisted a lot of things along the way, and asks if this is her choice. Seol asks if she thinks she doesn't understand. The serpent says that, on the contrary, she understands so well that it hurts even more. Seol asks the monster why it gave such an important jewel, and moreover, to someone she just met today. It replies that it was just a whim, because there's nothing lonelier than waiting for someone who will never come, and says that it too decided to let it go. With that, it begins to disappear. The girl, watching, says that it's such an unstable fate. When she looks at him, the thought disappears, and she says that he's a very stubborn person, even afraid of losing the second life he so painfully gained. He still tried to protect her. Suddenly a voice tells her to give it back. Crying, she says she will need to borrow just a little more, as it's still dangerous. The man who followed them questions her, as if she already knew, and asks when she realized this. She responds that she realized by the presence of a useless servant who only serves to take care of the Namgung family's leftovers. The servant of the Namgung family gets angry and says that they climbed the mountain in the middle of the night and then entered strange places. He says it's ridiculous that his young master lost to someone like that. He told him to handle everything in silence, so if she hands over that guy, he'll let it slide. Seol asks if that desire comes from the Namgung family or from the trash. The subordinate calls her bold and says how dare she speak like that. The girl raises her finger, telling him to be quiet. He says that if she wants to have such an end, so be it. Suddenly a blade cuts him. When he notices, he sees his arm on the ground. He gets angry and screams, but Seol tells him to be quiet and summons multiple energy swords. She, irritated, says that Yang Chun is sleeping peacefully, and she doesn't want him to wake up. By evening, at the Tang residence, Namgung Chunjun, irritated with his left arm bandaged, punches the floor with his other hand and insults Yang Chun, saying that he must have used some kind of magic. If not for that, how would that bastard dare face him? Suddenly, he feels a pain in his shoulder and falls, wincing in pain. He calls for the guard, Ma Chiol, and asks what the plan is. Chiol replies that the Gu family guard is stronger than they thought and says it doesn't seem like they'll have a chance to act. But for some reason, they are moving without the guard now. He says that maybe this is their chance. Chunjun laughs perversely and says that he's always trusted him, and he's sure Chiol will bring good news. Chiol says that he is from the Gu family, and asks how far they're going to deal with this. The white-haired young master says that it's the weight of the Namgung family and the life of that trash. Only then will he pay the price. The guard grabs his sword and says he understands. Back in the present, Ma Chiol asks the girl who she is. She thinks for a moment and asks if he needs to know. The guard asks why someone like her would do this. She then cuts off his other arm, telling him to stop asking questions, and says they don't have much time left. Chiol thinks that he needs to escape. In pain, he gets up and thinks he will take advantage of the fact that she's distracted with the newbie. He believes this will be his only chance, and thinks that when he returns to the sect, he'll plan his revenge later. He asks what kind of monster she is. Suddenly, he notices something strange and wonders why the ground is so close. When he realizes what happened, it's already too late. Seol says she wanted her first homicide to be at her own hand, but she ended up doing it herself, as a mere intruder. Suddenly, a voice tells her to return his body. Before Seol returns to normal, she apologizes. She says it may seem selfish, but asks if she can stay just a little longer since she's already bothered him. And she says it's just a little bit more. When the voice tells her to return his body, she says it's true, and that now and in the future, all of this belongs to her. The serpent's spirit asks if she's leaving. She responds that she's going to sleep because pushing her young body so much was too much. The serpent asks if she truly knows who she is. She responds that maybe. The monster says it will be a difficult journey, and she replies that she knows. Before disappearing, the spirit says it understands and wishes her a blessing on her way. Seol says that, if she gets the chance, they will meet again, and says the protagonist's name. Then she bows her head for a while. Sometime later, Yangchun wakes up startled. When Seola appears in front of him, saying that he's awake, he looks around and asks what happened. He sees that they're behind the dry tree on the cliff and wonders what exactly happened. He ended up finding the white maple tree. The treasure was completely empty, and suddenly, a snake the size of a house appeared. When he touched the strange jewel the snake gave him, it was suddenly absorbed. The young master asks if that's what happened. Seol looks confused by everything he said. He asks if she doesn't remember anything. The girl answers that she doesn't remember. He tells her to stop lying. Seol asks who would believe that she found a white tree, talked to a giant snake, and got a jewel. The young master asks why she only acts logically at times like this. He asks who brought them back, and Seola says she doesn't know, because when she woke up, she was already there. Suddenly, he feels a tightness and pain. The girl gets worried. He responds that he's fine, just feeling some pain in his dantian. She asks if he's in a lot of pain. The protagonist sits on the ground and starts to cultivate. He thinks he got it right, and believes that since he absorbed the jewel, the amount of energy flowing in his body feels strange. Clenching his fists, he thinks he's at the 3-star level, almost reaching 4 stars. So his memories must be right, and he wonders if the snake brought them back and erased Seola's memory, and thinks that makes sense. The girl says that if it hurts, it's better to go back. Yangchun says it's not hurting, but if they stay there, Muyan will extend the scolding time. With that, he thinks of something and crouches, telling Seol to get on his back. He says that walking would take too long, but carrying her while running is much faster. The girl, embarrassed, says she ate too much and is heavy. The protagonist gets irritated and tells her to get on already. She thinks for a moment but says she can't resist. As they walk, Seol asks if she's heavy. The young master responds that she's light, and thinks with the 3-star technique, fire wheel, and the energy overflowing like this. He crouches down, focusing energy into his legs, jumping from one side to the other, among the stones. He thinks that the body, which once felt heavy, is now as light as a feather. As they jump from stone to stone, they see the sun rise over the mountains. Muyon, worried, thinks a whole day has passed, and the young master hasn't appeared, wondering if he's all right. If not, his neck is done for. While he's lost in thought, Seol and Yangchun arrive. The young master asks his guard what he's doing there. Muyon, worried, shouts, asking where he's been. He disappeared the entire day and didn't say anything. The young master apologizes, embarrassed, and says he came back safely, and that's what matters. The guard says he was afraid something had happened and asks where he went. Seol says he found a snake on the mountain. The protagonist quickly covers her mouth and says she's just talking nonsense, as he just went for a walk. Mu-yeon asks if something happened. He responds that he found a unique opportunity and thinks he realized it too quickly, even though he's at the end of the upper level. Young-chun asks what the two presences are. When he approaches, he sees Soyeol Tang and Namgung Bia eating. Soyeol blushes while Bi continues eating her ramen. The protagonist asks Soyeol if she was waiting for him and asks Bia if she didn't promise not to bother him. Miss Soyeol says it's not like she was waiting for him. Bai responds with her mouth full that she's not bothering him. He asks what they came here for. Bia says she couldn't say goodbye, while Soyeol says she came to say goodbye as well. Young-chun asks Bi if young master Namguong is also here, thinking that if he is, it will be a headache. Bi says he didn't come. She says she told Chun-jun she would meet him, but he said he wasn't coming anyway. He wonders what that means. Bia says she has a question. The protagonist asks her where the formality is, pointing to him and asking what happened. She replies that it's just some problems. She asks if he wants to train with her and exhales her energy. Suddenly, Young-chun pretends to faint from being so tired from training and looks at his guard. Mu-yeon understands and apologizes to the ladies, saying the young master needs to rest. Soyeol, holding a piece of paper, says she wants to give something first and tells the protagonist that it's the invitation to the Tang family tournament next year, saying he can come if he wants. The young master thanks her and says they'll see each other next year, thinking that he probably won't. Miss Soyeol, blushing, says she just wants to try to maintain the relationship between the families and asks him not to misunderstand. She tells Bi that she thought he would get into trouble because he's ugly. Bia agrees, saying it's true. Soyeol realizes that her friend is happy and asks her if, by any chance, she likes Gu Young-chun. Later that night, Seol throws a tantrum wanting to eat tteok filled with sweet red bean paste and says she wants to enjoy chuseok. The protagonist tells her that summer is over and asks why she's acting like she has heat stroke by herself. He then asks what chuseok is. Soyeol Tang comments that it's a holiday that readers celebrate where they live, where everyone gathers, wears hanbok, and performs rituals. With that, he asks Seol how she plans to celebrate a holiday they don't even know about and tells her to stop and eat yanghwa. Bia tells Seol not to worry because she has a way and says all she has to do is make a wish to the moon. Then, if the moon hears their wishes, they'll be able to enjoy chuseok that way. Returning to Soyeol's question to Bi about liking Gu Young-chun, Bi, not understanding, asks what liking means. Soyeol blushes and says liking is something like. She sighs and tells her to forget about it. Bia asks what she was going to give her. Soyeol says that actually, she was going to give the invitation she gave to Young-chun, and says she should have prepared 2 invitations and apologizes. She says it's fine and that she did the right thing. Soyeol says she knew she could count on her and says that, as an apology, she'll give her a delicious poison. Suddenly, she feels a dark energy in her vision and starts to tremble, saying she's fine and can handle it. Blushing, she says that, anyway, she will meet him again.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and like the video. Thank you.